So you wanna make a Lego game using some big property, but you already did Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Lord of the Rings. Well, I think there's still one option that you've yet to explore. It's the series about a girl and her robotic dinosaurs. Now I know what you're all thinking, hey, isn't this a bit of a stretch? Horizon's fan base has been shrinking. It might be pretty, but there's always a catch. I've only met one person in my whole damn life who had an insatiable Horizon appetite. Everybody else doesn't care that much, but Herman Hulst doesn't really give a fuck. So here you go, world, it's Horizon again. If you got money, it's time to spend. It's got multiplayer, find a friend. Ooh, open up your mouth, girl, let me pour some Horizon in. It's sweet like honey, so give us all your money. Oh wait, oh fuck, no one's buying the game. I thought Horizon was as cool as Star Wars. I guess it turns out it's just kinda lame. Ooh, holy crap, oh no, why doesn't anybody care? Horizon is just as cool as all those other Lego games. Even though the evidence makes it seem like it's irrelevant, Lego Horizon flopped. I'm not sure why they bothered trying. All of its fans must have been lying. Lego Horizon flopped, Horizon. Guess Sony is gonna have to try again. Skeep-a-doop-bop-boop, deep-a-deep-a-doo-da, Robodino skip-bop, skip-bop, deep-a-deep-a-deep-a-boo-bop, going till the doo-da, beep-bop-a-noo-ta. Horizon should never had a Lego game. Whoever greenlit that must have been fucking insane. Lego Horizon flopped. I'm not sure why they bothered trying. All of its fans must have been lying. Lego Horizon flopped, Horizon. Guess Sony is gonna have to try again. Sorry Herman Hulst, guess you didn't make a new Star Wars after all. Sorry Herman Hulst, just another day of ya dropping the ball.
I drove my rusty pickup to the local game store door. Starfield gleamed upon the shelf, couldn't wait no more. Todd Howard spun his stories of galaxies afar, but when I fired up that game, I didn't get too far. Oh Todd, you sold me stardust, but gave me empty skies. Promised me the universe with all your alibis. I fell for all your stories, like I always do. Starfield left me wishing for a game that's true. They boasted endless planets, each one unique and new. But after planet number 3, I'd seen a deja vu. The critics didn't love it, gave it mediocre scores. Just another space misfire echoed across the boards. Oh Todd, you sold me stardust, but gave me empty skies. Promised me the universe with all your alibis. I fell for all your stories, like I always do. Starfield left me wishing for a game that's true. I searched for epic battles, but the AI wouldn't fight. Characters were wooden and the dialogue was trite. Todd promised me the cosmos, but left me in the dust. Now I'm trading in this game, it's betrayed my trust. Oh Todd, you weaved a fable of worlds beyond compare, but all I got were glitches and load screens everywhere. Still somehow I'm considering when the next game's not, 'cause hope's left me wishing for a game that's true, 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 true. Oh, Todd, you sold me stardust, but gave me empty skies. Promised me the universe with all your alibis. I fell for all your stories, like I always do. Starfield left me wishing for a game that's true.
That's most definitely what's up.
That is most definitely what's up. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to another day in the gaming universe. I'm here, ready to rock and roll. How are you guys doing? I'm feeling lively. I was playing a certain game last night, and I got to a really good part, like where everything's wrapping up. So I accidentally stayed up to like 2:30 playing it. It's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have. Have you guys had any games like that where you just kind of lose track of time and you just end up staying up way, way too late? Suicide Squad, how dare you? Started playing at 9 p.m. and I was done with it. Yeah, happens to the best of us. Deathborn, yeah. I mean, man, we'll talk about it soon enough. Red Dead Redemption 2, yeah, that's an easy one. That's an easy one to get lost in. Speaking of getting lost, I saw this tweet and now I can't unsee it. People pointed out similarities in how Elon Musk and Sims characters move on the character creator screen. Honestly, it's pretty close. It's pretty good. Now I'm always going to think about that forever. I'm just going to be like, oh, it's a Sims character. Yep. Doing the character select screen, character creator screen, whatever you would call it. It's pretty funny. Fear 2 started at 2 p.m., finished at 11. Oh, man. I remember playing Celeste for the first time, and I played that through in one sitting. Kind of accidentally. I mean, it was a snow day, so we didn't have college classes. So I just like blasted through it. Yeah. Pal World still, but sometimes Rivals. Yeah, especially if you're in the grinding mode for Rivals, I could see that. But yeah, we've got some fun stuff to chat about today. There's some weird stuff where, like, I guess we could do like a mini. Maybe this is like a clip. I don't know. Either way, I guess we can sort of talk about it. New segment or clip, maybe, whatever. So, as you guys know, like Spider-Man 4 or Spider-Man 2. Let me try that again. So you may know, or you may not know, for reasons we're about to get to. Spider-Man 2 is coming to PC in like 3 days, but there's been like nothing said about it. A handful of days ago, Nick Tech posted this and was like, Spider-Man 2 on PC launches in 6 days. Insomniac hasn't given us system requirements. They haven't released a PC features trailer, which is kind of standard. They haven't even mentioned it since January 20th. And prior to that, the only thing on their social media, they have like the thing pinned, mentioning, and that was pinned, October 18th. So months and months ago. Prior to that, you can see, where is it? Yeah, like they have this where they just put the links and that's it. And even when you go to the Steam pages, there's like really nothing here. It's kind of bizarre. Like there just isn't really any information about it. I mean, there's no system requirements listed. It's all TBD. Like, what the hell? It's really bizarre, is it not? Like, yeah, also no pre-order, which is a big Sony thing. Is this not weird? Is this not weird? Because I was like, oh, maybe this is common and maybe like they drop system requirements. months before or only hours before or something. But I'm like, no, even a game like KCD 2, which comes out on February 4th, handful of days later, they've had these system requirements posted for like weeks and weeks. We did a whole segment on stream about it. I mean, they've been very transparent talking about it. It's really weird. Even with something like, does Avowed have pre-orders open? Yeah, Avowed even has pre-orders open. Monster Hunter Wilds has pre-orders open. These guys have system requirements posted. Like, what is happening? What is happening? And I've been trying to think through it, and I mean, it's kind of frankly too late for delays, to be perfectly clear. So I don't expect them to delay it. This is being done by I don't know if it's Nixes or Nixies or however it's supposed to be pronounced, but this company, they're the ones that did Lego Horizon on PC. They did the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster, Until Dawn. They've done a lot. I mean, they've been on a lot of these PC projects. Ghost of Tsushima for PC. They also did The Last of Us Part 1, which didn't start too great. No, that was Iron Galaxy. I guess they helped with this. Iron Galaxy is the one that did this one, and this was a train wreck at launch, as I'm sure you guys remember. But either way, they've touched on some stuff. Or is this just, no, this is just PlayStation Studios. I clicked on Nix's, but it goes here. Okay, so ignore this. They didn't work on that stuff. The links are not... They're not working the way I want them to. Anyway, I just, like, Nix's is one of the good, like, porters. They do good work traditionally, as far as I'm aware. Everything I've seen them do seems to be solid enough. But it still is really weird that they've just not said anything about it. It's a little weird. It's just a little weird. People in chat, they forgot about it. I mean, it kind of seems like it. There's a couple pieces to this, a couple candidate explanations, and I'll let you know which one I think is more likely or if it's a combo. Number one, it could just be that they simply don't think it's worth the money to market it. That's a very valid, like, worry, I feel, especially with how much money has been wasted on so many of these projects. If you're interested in Spider-Man 2 on PC, you're going to find out about it. Like, you're going to see it on the Steam homepage. They'll pay $200,000 or whatever it is to be featured there, and they'll call it good. And then it'll be recommended. There'll be some YouTubers and streamers who talk about it briefly. So if you want to know about it, and if you're in the target demographic, you loved Spider-Man 2 on PlayStation, you want to play it on PC, or if you were waiting on it to play it on PC, you're probably going to figure it out and find out about it because you've been interested in it. So they may just feel like it doesn't need marketing. Counterpoint to that would be that, like, how much does a post on Twitter or X cost? Like, nothing. You put a screenshot you already captured and then just say available here and like blast that out across all the company's social media. It's just weird that they're not doing even the barest of bare minimums. So maybe it's a cost saving measure that they're not doing big commercials or anything. That would make sense. But even just little stuff, they seemingly are uninterested in doing, which is strange. Another option is that this is one of those things where they just feel like there's I don't know, maybe marketing it calls negative attention to it, so they just kind of want this to be a sneak, like a sleeper kind of release where they just put it out there. I don't really know if I buy that, because I don't think anybody would be freaking out about trailers for a Spider-Man 2 PC port. I think people would be fine with that. If they were announcing like Concord 2 or Fair Game $, the Ultimate Edition for $500, then maybe people would be upset. But it's a PC port for a Spider-Man game. Like, I don't think anybody would be upset or triggered if you started marketing it. So the third option is that it's just, incompetence is a strong word, but maybe a lack of coordination is a better way of saying it, where there's just not a clear marketing plan for it. And that is just a difference in priorities. And, you know, they've had other stuff going on, and they just didn't get around to it. This was a common critique of Xbox for years. Even now, it still is kind of a common critique of Xbox, is that there's not a lot of synergies across their studios and marketing arms, where they'll have a big game and you might see one post from one studio, but you don't really see the whole Xbox family promoting games together. Whereas on PlayStation, traditionally, when there's a launch of some big game, or a trailer revealing Ghost of Yotei, all of these other studios will go and talk about, like, ooh, congratulations on the reveal. And, you know, everybody's kind of working together. Even, funnily enough, which studio was it? No, it was Bend Studio. Let me see if I can find the tweet, because this was really funny. Oh, I'm not sure if I'm gonna find it. Basically, there was, when Concord released, Sony Bend sent out a tweet being like, hey, everybody in the studio is playing it. Excited to see what you guys were able to do. Super excited for launch day and stuff, which was funny because their player counts were so low. And a good number of those players were probably also working within Sony, which makes it all the funnier. Yeah, here. Yeah, Insomniac. We're playing Concord on Insomniac Live right now. We're out here playing Concord with our friends. Insomniac Games on Insomniac Live now. So on the launch day of Concord, when player counts, granted on PC, were abysmal, even like big PlayStation studios were playing it, which was a good chunk of that player base. Because, you know, they have hundreds of employees here, and they were saying stuff, whether true or not, I don't know. But they were saying stuff like, our whole studio is playing it right now. I'm like, oh, that's not great. Anyway, the point is, PlayStation has, in the past, recent past, been pretty good at coordinating stuff. Even when they're launching live service games, remasters, remakes, they still will put stuff out there and kind of talk about it openly and together. But with Spider-Man 2 on PC, there's just been absolutely nothing. They say it unlocks in 2 days, and there's no system requirements. There's nothing. It's really weird. Maybe there's another example. I can't think of another time when there's been a fairly large release like this and just no information at all. Because it'd be one thing if they were like, you know, maybe a little coy or slow to the draw with it, but there literally is no info. They just haven't given anything. It's really weird. I don't really know what to make of it. I don't know. Do you guys have any theories? Do you guys have any theories as to what they're doing? Ben's gonna get relegated to a Days Gone remaster. Herman Hulst, for whatever reason, doesn't like Days Gone and that franchise. And there was some like leaks, and there were some devs who were suggesting things like that. Was it John Garvin? Is that his name? You know, he's got quite the Twitter feed if you've not seen it. But one of the things he said was that Herman Hulst didn't have a hard-on for Days Gone, but he was eaten up, of course, Horizon and everything they do. So Days Gone just never got the chance that it probably should have if it were another studio. They've just always been weird about Days Gone. I don't know what it is. Herman has proven his taste is hot garbage. I mean, at the very least, he's proven that he doesn't have a clear idea of what gamers are looking for. Having Bluepoint, the guys behind the Demon Souls remake, work on a God of War live service spinoff is, I think, all you need to say to prove that point. I mean, who asked for that? Not a single person on planet Earth, I think, was looking for that. Let's see. You've been able to pirate Spider-Man 2 on PC for like a year, so I think they keep it quiet so people buy it at launch instead of pirating it before launch. That's interesting. If it is true that you can pirate it, I guess it would be because they don't have a sorted port, it would be like what do they call it? Just an emulated version? Would that be the term? To be fair, didn't the lead dev of Days Gone pretty much say he didn't want to do a second one? I mean, he sort of had like a meltdown, and there were just there were a number of things that happened. I think the people, the head honchos within Sony Bend that made Days Gone, they were really proud of the game. They said, or they thought that it should have been greenlit for a sequel. They thought it should have gotten better treatment from Sony, and Sony didn't treat them the right way. And so they were hurt and frustrated by that. And then on the flip side, Sony is like, well, stop crying about it. You know, you should have made a Horizon game. And so I think it just spun and spun and spun and spun. You also got upset about Days Gone being an Astrobot. Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, it's just like after a messy breakup, whenever you see the shadow of the person, you're like, hey, screw this. I think it was a lot of feelings were hurt. And, you know, Sony didn't handle it the right way. I do think if they made a Days Gone 2, that would have been way more successful than any of the other stuff that they've been like trying to pump out with live service. But now, I mean, Sony Bend has been transformed into a live service studio for some of the stuff that they've been working on that just got canceled. So Sony Bend that made Days Gone isn't even the same studio now. So what are you going to do? Anyway, all of this to say, I don't know exactly what the cause of this Spider-Man 2 stuff is, but it's weird. You might be right that they just feel calling attention to it is unnecessary. And if they call attention to it, maybe that stirs up piracy. Maybe it could be that they just don't think it's worth the trouble to market it. Who knows? Or maybe there's also been a lot of layoffs. So maybe it's something where they restructured the marketing departments, and now the team that would normally do the marketing for this and would coordinate that just isn't around, or has been moved somewhere else, and their responsibilities don't overlap anymore. And I mean, it'd be stupid if that's the cause, but sometimes stuff like that happens. So who knows? But if you have any theories, put them in the comments and chat, because I'm interested. Yeah. Now I'm picturing Deacon St. John fighting machines on his bike. Dude, that actually sounds fire. I'd be in for that. Thank you, Seth, for the super chats. Luke, with PlayStation canceling so many games, do you think they could port their exclusives to Xbox to make some money? I think as a point, I don't think they need to port it to Xbox. To PC, sure. Because, I mean, Xbox makes up a significantly smaller total unit count than, like, total unit platform count than PC does. And I think as a point of principle, PlayStation doesn't want to ever do that. But they'll bring it to PC and then, you know, do it that way. Will you talk about the DeepSeek situation? Yeah, the Chinese AI thing that they've got. Let's see. I mean, it's tricky because they basically, DeepSeek, my understanding is that it's a Chinese LLM that they came in and rocked it with like $5 million and were able to create something that's relatively competitive with other American LLMs, but for way, way cheaper. I mean, you know, NVIDIA, Meta, Google, Apple, Microsoft, like everybody is spending billions and billions and billions of dollars on AI stuff. And then China comes in, and for $5 million and for much like fewer token counts, they're able to do very similar stuff. And so it's caused the stock market to absolutely melt down today. If you've not seen just this announcement, look at this. That's not good. You remember just on Friday, we talked about how EA stock was down like 17, 18%. And we were saying how that doesn't happen just because you had one oopsie. That happens if a core pillar or the core pillar of your business is shaken and has investors really, really worried. That's basically what this is, because investors are looking at it and are like, wait, if you don't need $100 billion worth of NVIDIA tech to make an efficient LLM, well, then it's not worth what we were saying it was worth. So that doesn't work. That's an oopsie. So you see a mass sell-off. And also investors have been really worried about NVIDIA's overvaluation for a long time. So that's not really a surprise. More than anything, I mean, this is why people a year ago, 2 years ago, were saying, oh, we should ban all AI stuff. We should ban all like large language models. We should ban all this stuff because it'll take jobs away and everything. It's like, okay, like China's not going to ban it. And then they're going to just overtake you with more efficient stuff. And they'll just outperform you. And everybody will still use it anyways, you know?
Yo, Luke. Hope you're doing well. I'm incredibly excited for KCD2 and eager to hear your refined thoughts on it when it comes out. Have a chill Monday.
Yes, you too, my friend. And yes, I am very excited to be able to talk about it. You better believe it. Yeah. Top down on Apple Store, although some people are having trouble signing up for the app. Last week, DeepSeek launched a model that rivals OpenAI's ChatGPT and Meta's Llama 3.1 and was #1 on Apple's App Store. DeepSeek built the model using reduced capability chips from NVIDIA, which is impressive and thus caused major agitation for U.S. tech stocks with massive pressure on the NASDAQ this morning. It's an open source large language model that relies on what's known as inference time computing, which said in layman's terms means, quote, they activate only the most relevant portions of their model for each query, and that saves money and computational power. Which makes sense. Instead of having, it's almost like if you have a refrigerator with all the ingredients you might need for various meals and stuff inside, DeepSeek only takes out the ingredients it needs for the given recipe or the thing that it's making, whereas a lot of other LLMs will just open the fridge and take every single thing out, and it's just inefficient. Like, you just don't need to do that. So it can save a lot of compute power and thus a lot of energy and thus a lot of money. And so it's just, I think a lot of it is a knee-jerk reaction to the news. Do I think that DeepSeek all of a sudden outperforms all these other companies? Probably not. But I do think it's a wake-up call that, like, okay, no, there's competition. Like, China's going to get in on it, and they're going to be really competitive, and they're going to be pushing it, and they're going to be lifting any and all restrictions. That was another thing where the last administration tried to put in a bunch of restrictions on AI development stuff in the US. And like, you saw Jensen Huang and all these guys from NVIDIA and OpenAI that were very not happy about that, because they were like, if we don't like totally open the gates, we might fall behind. And then, the US economy, which right now is pretty much propped up on AI crap, might be in trouble. And, here we are. NVIDIA's lost $500 billion in market value today on competition from China's DeepSeek. Odds it's still the largest company by the end of the month have plummeted. Only a 10% chance now. See, just a few days ago, yeah, definitely the top most valuable company in the world at the end of the month. And now it's just totally inverted. Which is kind of funny. Buy the dip. I mean, the old Warren Buffett saying is, when people are scared, be greedy. And when people are being greedy, be scared. And I think in this case, there's a lot of people very scared. So no financial advice here. But do I think the core pillars of a lot of this stuff have been shaken? Not necessarily. One of the core pillars has been shaken, which is the cost efficiency. Like, that's something where, if it's true that China can create an LLM that's competitive to these other ones, but just way, way, way more efficient, that freaks out. All of these other companies are kind of depending on the inefficiencies right now. So we shall see what happens. But yeah, I think the market rebounds within a number of weeks. It won't be overnight, but I think that it'll rebound. It always does. Let's see. Milad, thank you for that one. 20 Canadian dollar dues. Hey Luke, wanted to share my ideas for 2 small games for The Last of Us and God of War. Last of Us, where you play as Tommy in Seattle, and God of War, where Atreus' search for giants leads to Greece, where he learns about Kratos' past. Yeah, I think for Tommy, I would do, because we've already been in Seattle, I'm not sure if we need that. Maybe if they did that as like a Miles Morales style spin-off game for $30, you know, a year or two after launch of Last of Us Part 2, maybe that could work. But I think as of right now, what would work best would be a game about Tommy and Joel and what happened from Sarah's death to when he meets Ellie. And you literally just do it over 20 years, bouncing through the timeline, showing where they were. And you literally start the game from the moment where he's cradling Sarah, and then you just move right on. I think that's what you do. That's what I would prefer for that one. As for the second idea, Atreus going to Greece, similar to the Seattle thing, I think just because we've already seen Greece, I'd like to see a new area. Like take him to Egypt. They already, in one of the comic books or novels or whatever it was, they went to Egypt for a little bit. So I think you could go to Egypt and show that in game form. I think you could go to what would be another fun one? Another wacky setting. I don't know, you could go to India, you could go to China. I mean, there's so many places and so many routes you could go. But I would like to see new stuff, you know? I'd like to see new stuff. What do you think of Saudi Arabia paying for a Mirage DLC? Oh yeah, that story. Basically, their investment firm is backing the production of a DLC for Mirage. One of the weirder and wackier stories I've heard recently. I don't really know much more than just that headline, but I would not have had that on my bucket list, frankly. We'll see. I mean, we'll see if it ever comes to light, if it ever sees the light of day, but one of the more wacky stories for sure. Mesoamerica. Yeah, I think he could do that. I mean, that's one of the other things, like there's an Assassin's Creed game that's being produced allegedly that will take you to like 3 different time periods, including like the Aztec setting, which is, that would be very different. Very, very different. But new settings are always good. I always like the new settings. Let's see. Nathan Drake or Joel in a fight. I mean, probably Nathan Drake because he's younger. Probably, if I had to put money on it. And I think Nathan Drake's killed a lot more people. Just based on the games we've played. He's literally fought like Nazi zombies and stuff. Has Joel done that? No, he's just fought regular zombies. So that's got to count for something. I mean, come on. Okay, let's talk about this real quick. News about it. Ubisoft confirms 185 layoffs as it closes former DJ Hero studio and downsizes other studios. Specifically, they are cutting jobs in Europe as part of their broader restructuring plans that they have. As you can see here in this report from VGC, the move will see the company close Ubisoft Leamington, maybe, which is based in Leamington Spa, England. What a place to live. Wow. Seriously, is this a real place? Or is this like just to troll me? Leamington Spa. Jesus. That's beautiful. Dude, come on. I'd work there. Golly, that's beautiful. Wowza canowza. Who knew? Anyway, so that's being shut down. That beautiful studio and that beautiful place is being shut down. And they're making cuts at Ubisoft Düsseldorf, Ubisoft Stockholm, and Ubisoft Reflections. Leamington previously was known as Freestyle Games, the studio behind the DJ Hero series. Before it was acquired by Ubisoft from Activision in 2017, it has worked mainly as a support studio in games such as Far Cry 5, Avatar, and Star Wars Outlaws. Yeah, I mean, if you're a support studio on a handful of games that don't do too well, Far Cry 5, my understanding is, did very, very well, but Avatar and Star Wars Outlaws obviously were disappointments. Ubisoft said in a statement provided to VGC, quote, as part of our ongoing efforts to prioritize projects and reduce costs that ensure long-term stability at Ubisoft, we have announced targeted restructurings at Ubisoft Dusseldorf, Stockholm, and Reflections, and the permanent closure of Ubisoft Leamington. Unfortunately, this should impact 185 employees overall. We are deeply grateful for their contributions and committed to supporting them throughout this transformation. Yeah, I mean, this layoffs are always awful because it's a reflection of typically mismanagement and problems that started on high, but the people on high aren't the ones that suffer for it. It's the people, in the actual positions doing the work that are punished for it and get laid off, even though it's like the executives that screwed up, they keep their jobs. They might not get as big a bonus or something, but they're still fully employed and they still are making millions either way. So they always suck. But this is also part of the problem with like these types of things is Ubisoft for years and years and years has put off layoffs. As I've told you guys a bajillion times, most investor analysis firms guesstimate that based on the money Ubisoft takes in, they should have like half the employees. They have 20,000 employees worldwide, and they should probably have 10 to 12,000 for what they're pumping out, which is crazy. And what you would typically see, let's just be honest, if this was an American company, you would have seen layoffs regularly over the last handful of years as they, to quote, what was the CEO of Microsoft all those years? I don't remember his name, but trim the fat. That was one thing he said in multiple interviews, was he had to trim the fat when he was doing layoffs. So you would see, if they were an American company, probably much more of that. But now they're doing lots of layoffs because they can't afford to keep the company at the size it is now. And it's just one of those things where it's like you either lay off 185 people here, 200 people there, 500 people here, and you just like start to really get the company running more efficiently, or you just keep plummeting in profitability and you go bankrupt and all 20,000 people lose their jobs, which of course would be worse. So it's always a sucky thing, but it's done in an attempt to prevent more catastrophic collapses. The Guillemot family currently owns 14% of Ubisoft shares, while Tencent owns 9.99%. This is also one thing to remember. I've heard some people get this wrong, but Tencent is not currently allowed to acquire more shares of Ubisoft without the Guillemot family trust, basically, allowing them to. And they own half of the Guillemot family trust that owns the Guillemot family shares, but they own like 49.99%. And so still they rely on the Guillemot family to give them the approval, which is why this whole thing is so bizarre, because Tencent is the only company seemingly interested in saving Ubisoft because they have more money than God. And yet Ubisoft executives, the Guillemot family specifically, doesn't seem to want to be saved because they want to stay in control and they don't want to leave. They don't want to have a new CEO come in. They want to stay in their positions of power. So Tencent wants to save them, but Ubisoft executives don't want to be saved. So they're looking for other things. So Tencent's in this weird spot where they're almost rooting for the company to destabilize and weaken to the point where the Guillemot family has no choice but to get booted out. And the Guillemot family, they also, they want it to stabilize, but they don't want it to stabilize too much, because if it stabilizes too much and the stock goes back up, then they don't have their chance at retaining full control. Ideally for the Guillemot family, they get to buy out the company, take it private with Tencent as a partner, and they get to stay in their position of power, and then the company goes back up and is valued with $10 billion or whatever it should be valued today. But it's just, it's the most bizarre sort of standoff situation I can think of in corporate business right now. It's really, frankly, bizarre. Because typically when a company is failing, the executives who also own a lot of shares, they just want to get the share price up. They just want the company to be worth more. So they're like, yeah, no, you buy it out, I'll leave, you run the company. As long as the share price goes up, I'll be making more money because my assets will be worth more. So do whatever you need to do. But in this weird situation, the Gamow family doesn't want to do that. And they would rather the company suffer so long as they get to stay in control, which I think is kind of shameful. Last October, Bloomberg, of course, reported that Tencent and the Gameaws had been speaking with advisors to explore ways to stabilize Ubisoft. This is also a fancy way of saying that they bring in outside analysts and advisors that basically just look through company books and structures and stuff and decide who to lay off. It's a pretty common thing. They identify targets for restructuring, and then they go through and they lay off all those people. It's a pretty common thing. Those discussions were said to have included the possibility of the pair teaming up to take Ubisoft private, although the talks were said to be at an early stage in the time. A Reuters report published last month claimed that Ubisoft's shareholders were considering how to structure a possible buyout of the company without reducing the Gamow family's control. Again, the Gamow family doesn't want to give up anything. Tencent was claimed to be undecided whether to participate in the buyout and increase its stake in the company, reportedly because it has staked or has asked for a greater say on future board decisions. According to Reuters, discussions between the two are ongoing as Tencent also wants to prevent any potential hostile takeover of Ubisoft by other investors. This is the thing that would be so fascinating. I don't know. I don't think Microsoft will actually now, under the new administration, they might be able to, but I don't know if Microsoft would be able to get an acquisition of Ubisoft approved by like European regulators. I don't know if they could get that done, but let's say hypothetically they could. It's a small acquisition, all told. It's only like 1.3 billion dollars roughly is what they would pay for Ubisoft. Even though the company should be worth like 14 billion according to like their IP and how many employees they have and the other assets, properties, leases, accounts receivable, bookings, all of that. Like they should be worth a lot more, but it's the management that's the problem. And so if Microsoft came in and was like, hey, we'll buy out every single share, we'll be generous, we'll give you $2 billion for it, even though right now it's trading at 1.3. In that case, they would have to sit up and look at that. But I think the Gamow family and all of the other people would fight that pretty hard. And Microsoft could pursue a hostile takeover, which would just be basically to go in and buy up individual shares, as many as they could, and just say, no, suck it up. You're going to deal with it because I'm going to buy all these shares. And they just go to all of the smaller shareholders and buy up their shares until they have a majority stake. And then they vote to basically give themselves the company and go from there. But that gets real messy. But funnily enough, that might be the only thing that pushes the Gamow family out, is if they become that desperate that Tencent has to come in and bankroll the whole thing, because Tencent has the money to fight Microsoft on an acquisition like that. The Gamow family does not, but Tencent's not allowed to acquire more shares until the Gamow family gives them the go-ahead, which is a problem. So the whole thing is just insane. The whole thing is bizarre and crazy and stupid, but we'll see what happens. Again, I mean, there's going to be more layoffs this year as well. Even though this year is going to be massive for gaming, there's still a lot of projects, a lot of studios that are working on stuff that's not ever going to see the light of day, frankly. And I mean, even now we're seeing layoffs or we're seeing projects getting shut down from PlayStation, whether it's Bluepoint or Sony Bend, or, you know, at Ubisoft, you're seeing that. You're going to see layoffs at Microsoft Studios because they own so many. It's just going to keep happening. But for Ubisoft specifically, it's going to be interesting to watch how this kind of develops, because there's a lot of gears turning behind the scenes. It's breaking my brain. Just give me more AC. They're going to do that. I mean, reasonably, we could see AC Shadows launch in March, and then we could see the Black Flag remake this fall, and then next year see Hexe I would guess in the fall. I would be surprised if it's ready before that, but maybe it's ready early. There's rumors Invictus could be seen early, like maybe next year or something. Who knows? But like, there's just a lot of AC stuff that's out there and that they're working on, and I'm really excited to see how this all develops, because it kind of all depends on Shadows. If Shadows does pretty well, they could reasonably expect to see they could see, you know, a little bit of I don't know, headwind. Is that the term? No, headwind's bad. Wind at their backs. Is that the term? That doesn't sound right. I don't know. Let me see. I was going to try to find... Oh yeah, just as a heads up, I am waiting for the inspector to come. He's got to inspect the he's got to inspect the other room because we did all the insulation and stuff, so I have to make sure to let him in. So if I just randomly have to be like, oh, I've got to go real quick, give me 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, that's what I'm doing. Okay. It's nothing scary. I'm just trying to get a basement room finished, and it's kind of an ordeal. It's kind of a whole thing, frankly. Okay. Find the headway. Luke almost leaked the new AC. And they don't even need anybody to leak it. They've announced the next like decade of AC stuff. Like, it's also kind of frustrating because it feels like there's no
Mark Fleming
surprises,
is now a member.
you know?
Sorry I'm late. What's the deal with Yasisk in Shadows? He got erased?
No. No. Mark. Also, I'm just going to say this. When we did that segment the other day on Friday or whenever it was, where we were talking about like I tried Assassin's Creed Shadows, or I guess maybe it was Wednesday or Monday or whenever it was. One of you guys in chat asked if he's able to swim. And I thought you were just honestly asking if you were asking if he was able to swim because like he's heavier and bigger and like able to move the same as Nawe. So I answered it like, yeah, he actually is. He's able to swim. It's the same animations as this and that. I didn't realize that person was being like hardcore racist until I looked at the comments of that video.
I remembered I need to become a member on YT since Patreon ended. Thanks for that Witcher video.
Oh, you're welcome. Yes, you're welcome, my friend. Thank you for being here. Zeke's and we that Witcher video is fun. It was such a great excuse to go back and just replay all of it. I mean, let's be honest, that was a lot of it. Rise of the Ronin comes to PC 10 days, or to Steam 10 days before Shadows. Yeah, I'm interested to see if they've made any technical improvements because, goddamn, that game did not run well at launch. It was really frustrating. I mean, you want to hear somebody really rage against that game? Go and freaking watch Jor Raptor talk about that game, because Jor, not a fan of that game. And he played a lot of it, and he was like, no, dude, it's awful. He's like, the difficulty spikes are insane. The level design is terrible. Like, he lit it up, which was pretty funny. Yeah, it runs on 8K. That's what they say in the article. But if it runs at 8K and looks like it did on the PlayStation 5, I don't care. It could run at 16K and it'll still look like crap. If they fix like the pop-in, if they fix the problems with the shadows, if they fix like all of that stuff, then okay, we're talking. But my God, at launch, it looked terrible. It looked like a bad PS3 game. Not even like a good one, because The Last of Us originally was PS3. There are a lot of good PS3 era games graphically. But damn. It took you 2 to 3 business days to realize? No, it was only when I looked back at the comments and people pointed out, and then I watched the clip again and I saw the guy in chat ask if he could swim. And then I was like, oh, he was okay. I thought it was an honest gameplay question, which is why I answered it as an honest gameplay question. I didn't realize he was being a prick, but yeah, this is why I've got to like be so on it when we stream, because if I'm not, you guys get me, and I'll just totally miss something. It's like those compilations of people tricking streamers into saying bad words. I'll be honest, I've watched those compilations. They're funny, you know, when you get a streamer to actually call somebody, you know, big booby head or something. But it was this one was I just went right over my head when I read it. Let's see. Oh, yeah, how am I doing? Are you looking forward to Spider-Man 2 in 2 days? I don't even know if I'll be able to run it now because they still haven't released PC specs. So who knows? Who knows? Maybe I should be excited or maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, exactly, Leo. It's stuff like that. It's stuff like that. That's when they get you. Okay. Let's touch on this real quick. News saver. There's another kind of exciting PC thing going on real quick. In case you're not aware, because Spider-Man 2 coming to PC, it's true, it's happening, but they have not said anything about it. There's no spec sheet. There's no marketing, nothing. But there's another thing happening with PC that is getting some marketing and that people are talking about. You want to know? It's the Hogwarts Legacy free PC mod support update that they're just dropping for free. Look at this.
Hey everyone, Chandler Wood here, Community Manager at Avalanche Software, and I'm incredibly excited to finally announce that official modding is coming to Hogwarts Legacy in our next free update. That's right, we're opening the doors and we can't wait to see what you come up with. Wait, Chandler, what exactly is modding? Well, I'm glad you asked, Chandler. Modding is the ability for you, our amazing community of players, to create and play custom content in Hogwarts Legacy.
But Chandler, isn't modding usually complicated?
It doesn't have to be. We've made it easy for everyone.
Look at that. That's nice. Alohomora Autosolve. Trailblazer Aeromancer Princess Longhair. Student increased potion plant yield. Rose bouquet wands. They have the size of it. It's like ratio. Number of downloads.
It's all simplified with official tools provided by
I like the layout, and it looks like you can filter then by like gameplay affecting stuff, by cosmetics, by skins, by, you know, different writable things. Like there's
For mod creators, you'll be able to
mounts, I
get the
guess.
official Hogwarts Legacy Creator Kit free on the Epic Games Store. The Creator Kit provides powerful tools right at your fingertips, allowing you to flex your inner developer, like the ones here at Avalanche, and conjure the magic with custom mods that other players can enjoy too. If you're already dreaming up new mods, connecting your CurseForge and WB Games accounts will let you easily upload your creations directly into Hogwarts Legacy for other players to enjoy. And for players to use these mods, our in-game mod manager makes finding, downloading, and installing mods as easy as casting Alohomora. So what's possible with modding? Whether it's adding small touches like hairstyles or character cosmetics, or diving deep with gameplay changes like new dungeons and quests, I'm excited for what I've seen so far. In fact, we've been working with some incredible mod creators ahead of launch to make sure you'll have some really cool things ready to play with right from day one.
I've been dreaming of this day for a long time.
All right, so let's talk brooms. Why settle for a standard sweeper when you can fly on something a little more creative? How about transforming your broom into a dragon spine, a phoenix, or even a vacuum cleaner as an homage to a few other witches?
Whoa, yeah.
And we'll have fresh ways to customize characters. Want long braids, Kelpie-inspired clothes, or maybe Hogwarts house outfits in new styles like Kraken or Periwinkle? Done. Now you've got it. Want new gameplay challenges to tackle? How about a brand new endless dungeon experience with constant combat and hidden paths? Check out the Dungeon of Doom mod. Feeling whimsical? There's a brand new magical creature fetch quest.
Wait.
But this is just the beginning. Now is where you come in. Our modding tools give you the ability to create these new quests, design custom dungeons, and make an assortment of cosmetic changes. I, for one, have always thought it would be cool to ride a dragon, or have a beard as a 5th year, or even modding our very own Andrew Quorum into a picture frame or 2, or 3, or 4, or 10. Mods make my bad Photoshop a thing of the past.
Can someone please make a mod? I'm not joking. If you do this and you send it to me, we will play it on stream. I will, okay? Scout's Honor. Is this the Scout Salute or is this Hunger Games? I don't remember. Either way, I'll do it. Make a mod that replaces all of the picture frames with pictures of Nicolas Cage. Do that and I'll play it. Todd Howard would be a close second. If you could do that where Todd is just looking at you through all of the picture frames, we'll play it on stream, okay? Maybe that could finally take this game from like an 8 to a 9 out of 10. Why not both? That's a great point. That's a great point. You guys do that. Send me the link to the mod when you're done with it on or like the picture of the mod name or whatever. Send it to me on X or mention it on stream and we'll play it on stream, okay? Somebody out there do that. It'll be amazing. It'll be amazing. Now I really hope someone does it.
And in-game dreams are reality. Modding is the next stage of Hogwarts Legacy, and we're excited to put it in the hands of our community. That's you. Aww. To see what you create, get ready to conjure the magic.
Official modding support and the Hogwarts Legacy Creator Kit releases on January 30th.
We can't wait to embark on this magical new journey with you. Bye.
Dude, just a free update with full mod support. That's great. What are the odds? Let me just ask you this. What are the odds that they're going to do a creation club thing? They didn't mention anything about paid mods. I don't see any paid mods in here. There's no tab for store. There's nothing like that. They just have a library of mods you've selected, browse for new mods, discovery, which are probably like recommended featured mods, and then enabling them and probably load order and stuff like that is found there. But I don't see any paid mods. Is this just what like BGS has done to me? It's made me so cynical that they're going to do this. I mean, maybe they are just going to start with this and then later they do it. But either way, as of right now, this is just a solid update. This is great. Got to warm us up. I mean, honestly, if they offer solid mod support from day one, cool. And as I've said so often with this stuff, like if you're going to put in a lot of like monetizing stuff, especially in like single player games, release a good game. And if a year later you want to do that, okay. If you have to do it, put it a year later. And then the most hardcore dedicated people that want to support you, they'll still be playing the game and they maybe will buy it and be interested. My problem is when you have a game like an AC Valhalla that is so massive, you feel like you really need to spend $5 for the XP boost so that you can level up faster and progress faster. And it almost at times feels like the game was balanced for you to have that XP booster, which is really stupid and harms the experience if you're just paying the starting fee. You know, it's something I didn't like about Hogwarts Legacy at launch was that they had the Dark Arts Arena locked behind, I believe it was the deluxe edition, I believe is where it was put. But basically it was, I mean, it was you got a different version of the game with more content if you paid more. And I don't like that when Ubisoft does it. I don't like it when Avalanche does it with Hogwarts Legacy. I just don't like it. I don't like exclusive quests as part of pre-order bonuses or as part of the deluxe edition. Even like the exclusive quest that I forget what the name of it is, but in Hogsmeade with the like haunted shop quest that was exclusive to PlayStation. Even though there's not like an additional cost to that, it still is a different version of the game based on how you buy it or where you buy it. And I just don't like that stuff. It's like, you remember way back in the day, this is going to test to see how old you are. Do you guys remember Arkham City and the Catwoman exclusivity stuff? Do you guys remember that? You might not, because you might not be an OG. Arkham City. It was... Let me see if I can find the original one. If I recall correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it was a GameStop exclusive in the US. It was GameStop exclusive. So if you bought Arkham City through GameStop, you got those Catwoman challenges and the whole thing with Ivy and all of that. But if you did not buy it through GameStop, you just didn't get those missions. You just didn't get them. You didn't get to play it. It was like an additional, I think, $10 or something for the DLC if you wanted it. But just depending on where you bought it, you would get way more. And of course, later they took that away and they did the Game of the Year edition that has all of the content inside. Oh, is this a picture of the box? No escape. Okay. Activate your Batman Arkham City Pass to unlock Catwoman as an exclusive playable character. So if you did not buy it through the right outlet, or if you did not buy the right version from the right exclusive partner, you just didn't get Catwoman and all of those missions, all that gameplay. That was also Warner Brothers. Okay. And Rocksteady. That's why Rocksteady doing like live service stuff was not the most surprising thing in hindsight, but this is not a new thing. Okay. But with Hogwarts Legacy, as of right now, it looks like this is just free mods. Awesome. Mod support. That's fantastic. A gift to the PC community. That's tremendous. Of course, we've had mods for a while, but they're much more difficult to install than this. This is aiming for the more casual PC player that is looking to just have a tab in the game and you select the mod and download it. That's great. I love that. And I much prefer this technique, even if they do eventually add paid mods or something. The fact that they're doing it after launch and they provided a solid game independent of all of that stuff is great, because back in the day, and even sometimes recently, we've had stuff like this where they would just take, you know, a chunk of the game and cut it out and then sell it back to you. And I hate that stuff. But as long as you're making a complete game, and then if you want to create more stuff later and sell it as supplemental stuff, cool, that's fine. I'm okay with that. I understand these games cost $200 million to make. I get it. I understand it. But make a good game to start, please. let's do that, and then we can figure out how to make more money on the back end. Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh man, I forgot about that Arkham City stuff. That's so funny. I love Arkham City, but damn, some of that exclusivity stuff they did back in the day was so stupid. It was so stupid. And I remember, I think I bought it for the 360 through GameStop's used program. So I got the game for like $15 or whatever it was. And they had little slips that they would put into the game case so that you could download it, because after the first person redeemed the code or whatever, however they did it at launch, you'd be screwed if they resold it. But now they just do it as DLC. Now that's all they do typically. Hey Luke, I watched your 3-hour critique on the Arkham series last night. Great video. Funny hearing you wanting a Suicide Squad game back then. Yeah, man. I remember saying that, and I was like, I think there's a compelling thing here. And then seeing what we ended up getting is kind of heartbreaking. But you know, truth is stranger than fiction sometimes. I sure did get it. Maybe I shouldn't have asked for it. Maybe I shouldn't. The Sweet Touch of Love says, yeah, I worked at GameStop in 2011, and back then it was very common to have store exclusive pre-order content. And look how much it's changed now. I mean, nowadays, GameStop doesn't get like anything. They're closing down a bunch of stuff. Like one of the GameStops near me just randomly shut their doors out of nowhere. out of nowhere. It's crazy. Almost as crazy as that stupid freaking football game last night. I tried to watch with my brothers. I'm not usually a football guy, but I tried to watch the Bills and Chiefs game last night. Why does anybody watch football anymore? Like, I don't understand why anybody would watch it. It was so laughable. So many of the calls were just like, really? Is that what we're doing now? It was insane. It was so stupid. I was like, I remember watching football back when I was really into it. And I swear to God, like, you could tackle the quarterbacks. You could do that. The most telling thing for me was watching the difference in how the defense went after Mahomes versus the Bills QB. Like, Mahomes starts running and everybody just kind of stands there. And he just like runs forward and slides off. It was like laughable versus, you know, they're tackling the Bills quarterback and doing the suplex with it. It was kind of ridiculous. It was bad. American football. Yeah. Sorry. Back in the day, Eli Manning would get murdered on a regular basis. Yeah, dude, his brain's probably scrambled eggs at this point based on how he used to get battered. I remember which, was it Brett Favre? I remember, bruised leg. There was one game on, was it Brett Favre? There was a quarterback, I think it was Brett Favre, where it was in like maybe a Super Bowl or something, but he was getting targeted on his legs and they would just like headbutt him in his thigh to get his legs super busted and bruised up. And so by the end of the game, he could barely walk. It was a playoff game right before the Super Bowl. Yeah, if you remember what I'm saying, they just would destroy. It was like an MMA thing where you go for the legs and you just destroy them before you like go for like the big plays where he'd have to move and run. It was crazy. But that's how it used to be, you know? That's how it used to be. Is the quarterback is a football player just like everybody else. He can get tackled, he can get beat up too. That's part of the game, and you shouldn't play recklessly if you don't want to get hurt. But it's so painfully stupid how now they just like couch Mahomes because they're like, no, well, he's valuable. So, and the cringiest thing about all of this is the constant cutaways to Taylor Swift. I know none of the football like announcers, whatever you call them, none of those people care what Taylor Swift thinks about the game. But you can tell that the NFL is like, no, we have to constantly cut away to her. So you have to constantly be like, oh, and there's Taylor so proud of her team or whatever. It's like, shut up. I don't care. It's so dumb and so transparently like, see, Taylor Swift likes football. You should like football too. It was, man, maybe I'm just a boomer. Maybe that's all it is. But watching that game last night made me just go like, okay, I can't get back into this so long as it's like this. It's unbelievably stupid and unwatchable to me. Like, at least there's been some stuff where like some sports, they get sort of, maybe they get whittled down and they're more generic and they're less interesting. Like when the UFC put all these rules in to try and prevent extra injuries because they wanted the acquisition to go through and they wanted the USADA approval and all this. But then like in the last year, they've added a bunch of it back, right? Like now they already are able to do the 12-6 elbows again. They started being able to do that. They've loosened up on a lot of the rules when it comes to grappling. They've tried to break down the or increase the penalties for like the guys that lay on the floor to try and grapple you instead of actually fighting. Like they actually are trying to make the sports more exciting. Whereas the NFL, like you watch it nowadays and it looks like Sarcastaball from South Park. It's like, okay. And then we go up to Mahomes and everybody gives him a hug and a word of encouragement. And then we go in here, you put your balloon bra on and it's just so stupid. Yeah, Douglas, you remember the thing with John Jones? They called him for a 12-6 elbow, and he was going like this. Like, that's a 12-6. He's like, okay, so this is allowed. This is not. This is allowed. This is not. Like, how stupid is it? It's just so dumb. So dumb. Anyway, let me catch up on these real quick. Nathaniel, thank you for the super chat. Caught you live, bro, from Ireland. You an FF fan? I'm not sure what FF is. What would be an Irish FF? What is that? I'm not sure. Final Fantasy? Oh, Final Fantasy. Yeah. No, I like Final Fantasy. Hold on, my wife's calling. Let me pick this up real quick. Just a second. Just chuck my headphones out of nowhere. When they decide to go, they decide to go. She forgot I was streaming. She's like, I just wanted to chat. Okay. Okay, here we are. Let's see. Johnny, thank you for that one. Let's see, where was Brandon, thank you for the 5. Been working through Hogwarts Legacy before February. It's awesome. They're adding a new character named
Johnny 4 times is now a member.
Are you trying to trick me? Hold on. I'm not so sure. I'm suspicious now. I'm suspicious. I don't recognize that. It doesn't sound like anything bad. What is this? What is that? That's the name he put in it. What does that spell out when you say it? I'm not sure. I'm not going to say it out loud because now I'm suspicious now, when it's probably just an honest message from Brandon. Raven, thank you for that super chat. I bet the equivalent of $1 that they'll do it. Probably eventually, yeah. Caleb, thank you for that one. It's all about the new market shares, man. Those 18-year-old girls are going to carry the NFL. Yeah, I think the mistake is thinking that will not turn off some of their core audience, because I saw a post on X last night after the game, and people were saying like, you know, we've got to boycott the NFL now because there were multiple calls that were just hilariously terrible, or they just don't call holding and don't call face masks and stuff against Chiefs, and it was just like hilarious. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's tough. But I mean, it's the same thing with Call of Duty. It's like, okay. If you don't like it, stop watching it. If you don't like the game, don't play it. But for like those same people that are raging about it will keep watching. They'll keep, you know, being upset about it, and they'll keep doing all that. Like, same with Call of Duty. Everybody hates Call of Duty, but until you stop playing it, they won't change anything because it's working. You know? Like, why would they change it? It's still working. Johnny, again, thank you for the membership, my friend. Caleb, thank you for the 5. Did you tell her we said hi? If not, you better call her back and tell her chat says hi. Just like, hey babe, I just want to tell you chat says hi. They're getting upset with me. Yeah, man, And I want to get into football because I remember liking it, being into it and stuff, but watching it nowadays, I can't. Anyway. Okay. Let's see. Let me move forward. I got distracted. I'm sorry. Let's talk about this. Just shake it off. How dare you, Seth? Coming into my chat and saying that. War Dog, thank you for resubbing with Prime, my friend. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, see, now I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that message. I'm scared to read it out loud. But this is what happens. This is what happens. I got to be cautious because you never know. I don't want to end up on one of those compilations, you know. I probably will end up on one. It'll be like a big moment for me. Dude, some of these. Oh, yeah. Apparently Microsoft is in like serious talks to buy TikTok. So honestly, unironically, this might be part of the reason why they're not pursuing Ubisoft more, is because they're going to be tying themselves up with regulators and acquisition stuff, trying to buy up TikTok. Man, can you imagine? Can you imagine? They make TikTok, you have to download it from the Microsoft Store. Oh, man. Yeah. That's how this will go, isn't it? That's definitely how this is going. I wouldn't be surprised. What happened to competition, man? This is the thing, though, is the current administration, they've come in and, you know, they've given an extension, but they've not said TikTok's fine. They've said you have an extension, and the extension is to sell to an American company. ByteDance doesn't want to sell. Reportedly, they consider TikTok worth $200 billion. A lot of the offers have been around 20 to 30 billion. Reportedly. We don't know for sure how much, but I mean, reportedly it's around there. But ByteDance reportedly considers the app worth $200 million. And so, I mean, Microsoft's not paying 200 billion for that. Like, TikTok's big, but the thing TikTok doesn't have is a solid, like, revenue generation tool. They have, of course, promotions. They have ads that they run. They have a ton of exposure. They have TikTok Shop. They have all of that stuff, but they don't have the infrastructure that like Google has with AdSense. They don't have the infrastructure that Meta has with their ad program across WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook. You know, they have a ton of eyeballs, but they haven't figured out a solid way to monetize it. And that's the same reason that Vine kind of imploded. Vine was similar to TikTok, massive, and it had tons of viewership. But like when Twitter bought them out, they couldn't find a way to monetize it. They just couldn't. They were like, we just don't know how to make money on 7-second videos. And that's been the age-old problem. Like, you know, for most of these big social media platforms, the name of the game is watch time. That's what YouTube cares about. That's all they really care about. Little advice for you as a, you know, aspiring YouTuber is it's all about watch time. So if you make a video that people watch a lot of and they watch all the way through it, YouTube will promote your video. Easy peasy. And then they'll insert ads every 4, 5, 6 minutes, whatever it is. And they want you to keep coming back and watching more of the videos on their platform and watching the ads that play during it. And they want the video to be compelling enough that you sit through the ad and then you keep watching on the other end. That's what they want. With TikTok, the problem is they show you an ad and you just swipe right past it. And if they show you an ad and they make it unskippable, people just close the app. Like they rage quit the app. And that, I mean, that is the fundamental issue within TikTok and short form content, is that you train an audience to get used to just swiping when they don't like something. And if they run into something that prevents them from doing that, they get frustrated and they shut it down. And so, like, how do you deal with that? Well, the way TikTok's tried to deal with it is by turning themselves into a giant Temu platform and basically just selling Wish.com crap. And it's really frustrating because it actively interferes with the quality of the videos as well, where it's just constant creators being like, I wish I had something that could cure my back pain. Oh, look, I have this massage ball. It's available in TikTok shop for $5 and with $35 shipping. You know, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. But that's why, like, for TikTok to assume that they're worth $200 billion, it's like, okay, if you had a way to make money on it, maybe. But as of right now, it just seems like you're not quite there. I mean, they've struggled with it. And I mean, it's always a tug of war between making money through advertising and generating revenue, and then also not interfering too much with the viewer experience to the point where they leave. That's been the problem, is that they haven't really struck a balance to monetize it super well. The fact that you can have a content creator that is getting millions and millions and millions of views every month on videos, and they are making maybe like $2,000 maybe in the ad revenue program, maybe $3,000. That's a problem. Because you would think, based on that they would see much more. TikTok Premium. Well, the thing with TikTok Premium is to push people into using TikTok Premium, signing up for like a $10 a month subscription to watch TikTok ad free. They'd have to increase ads to the point where you get pushed into using it. And I think the vast majority of their viewer base on TikTok is younger. It's like high schoolers, middle schoolers, college students, people that don't have a lot of expendable income for that type of thing. So, like, even then, I don't know if that's an easy solution. Yeah. Yeah, once you get used to YouTube Premium, you can't go back, I'll tell you what. Yeah. What happened to the ban? The ban is still technically a law in the United States. It's still at play. They've just received an extension. But the extension was to sell the company to an American firm. That's been like Trump's whole thing, is that he wants it to go to an American firm, which is what Microsoft is trying to do. I know Mr. Beast is talking about trying to buy it with a group of other investors and stuff. Maybe they find success there. I highly doubt it, because I think if Microsoft is interested in buying TikTok, Microsoft is much more likely to get approval, and Microsoft is much more likely to have the firepower to win out that bidding war. But this is the other thing is, again, ByteDance, they've said from the beginning they don't want to sell because they would lose the algorithm, which is their competitive advantage. So they don't want to sell. They don't want to sell it to Google. They don't want to sell it to Meta, because then Meta can just take TikTok and it becomes part of their family of apps, and boom, they're happy. So we'll see what happens with it. As you can see here, it's unlikely that Microsoft will actually have any real involvement in owning TikTok, although TikTok is one of Microsoft's biggest Azure AI companies. Lots of TikTok's machine learning tools and features leverage Azure, although the bulk of the network itself is hosted on Oracle Cloud. Microsoft's involvement likely begins and ends around its Azure AI contract, if I had to guess. Yeah, I mean, it's possible that we see like a multi-firm buyout, kind of similar to what Hulu was, where Hulu was a sort of cooperation between multiple media companies, and maybe they do something like that. But yeah, Microsoft's more likely to get approval since when after that antitrust and Activision buyout. There's a new administration now
a member. Since we both
that
want
is
a
like
pirate
specifically
game,
courting them.
I'm in the middle of KCD, and I would love for Warhorse to do a pirate game, KCD style. How does that sound to you?
That sounds good. that sounds good. I like that. We should do that. Yeah, any pirate games just in general, I feel like are so underrepresented in the industry now. I hope we get back into that meta, because every few years there's a new meta where it's like, ooh, zombie games are the thing, or oh, it's Viking games, ooh, it's Japanese like ninja samurai games. I want us to go back to the pirate games. That's the thing. That's what I want. We got to get there. We can do it together. Seth, thank you for
Seth W is
the
now
membership.
a member.
Thank you. Mel, man, been watching your videos for years. First time seeing you live. Just want to say I love your work. Thank you, Mel. Glad to have you here. Thank you for being here. Nintendo should buy it. Oh, God. I don't think Nintendo has the money. That's the thing. I don't think they have the money. Nintendo's not as big as you would think. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the TikTok ban. I wouldn't be surprised if in a month, or I forget if it's a 90-day extension or a 45-day extension. It's one of the two. But whenever the extension ends, I think you'll probably see another shutdown for like a day or two, and then there'll be some announcement that they've decided to sell. I think they'll try to call like Trump's bluff when he says, no, you have to sell it. And then he's going to be like, okay, so go ahead, buy. And then they're going to sell it to someone. Because, I mean, yes, the algorithm is a competitive advantage, but I think that they would much rather have $50 billion than nothing. And if the competitive advantage is gained in the US that they're not operating within, does it really matter that much? I mean, yeah, Meta and all these other social media platforms would like to be more competitive in China, but China has much stricter government regulators and stuff than a lot of the US regulatory bodies that shift so frequently with administration to administration. It's kind of crazy. Dopest show. Thank you for the 10. Hey, Luke, what do you think about the AC Watch Dogs game? Think of the possibility of conflicts between Creed and DedSec. And we could have CTOs and Abstergo team up. If you agree, please tell Ubisoft to do it. I think Watch Dogs right now is indefinitely on hold. I mean, they've pretty much said as much. Yeah, I mean, it's just they severely underperformed with Watch Dogs Legion, and I just think that they're not going to get any green lighting. I just really don't think so. I'm sorry, this is really funny. Watch this. They're asking DeepSeek, the new AI model, what famous picture has a man with grocery bags in front of a tank or tanks, which is like the Tiananmen or the whatever is it Tiananmen Square with the tanks lined up or whatever, and like it starts to answer. It immediately stops. The unknown rebel, tank man. And then it's like, nope, sorry, that's beyond my current scope. It's just like it received the slap on the wrist. It's like, nope, okay, nope, I'm not allowed to talk about that. Sorry. That's funny. Yeah, it's a Chinese AI, all right. Checks out. Sure does. It's freaking funny. Oh man.
Daniel Young is now a member. Do you believe the gold edition of KCD is worth it considering what you're getting, or should I just get the normal edition? Keep up the good work, smile.
Daniel, I will say, yeah, I think it's worth it. The DLC are really good. And anything you can do to prepare for the sequel, I think you should do. And yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. Yeah. It said June 4th, which is likely a banned term, and had to back out. Yeah. What Warhammer army do I have? DC PYG. I have Eldari, Chaos Demons. I have some Necrons. I have a bunch of Orcs. but probably my favorite are my Thousand Suns. I have a problem. I have a problem. Here I am asking for help. Oh, so a heretic. Yeah. No, I don't really like the good old fashioned Space Marines. I just don't like the gameplay style. Like I like the more wacky, crazy stuff. Thousand Suns has some fun stuff, especially when you run like Mutalith, Vortex Beasts, and even Chaos Demons. You play a lot with aura abilities, and so it's much more about positioning, and I like that kind of thing. Yeah. What's the yellow bucket on my left? This is a cup from when we were in the Bahamas, the Coconut Club. I use it to put like little snacks in when I come down in the evening to play games. It's a good time. Grey Knights for the win. Oh, Grey Knights. They're another. That's a whole other thing. Taking on Grey Knights, I'll tell you what. My buddy plays Grey Knights, and I don't know if I can. It's a lot. It's a lot. Anyway. Let's talk real quick about Real Men Play the Guard. Probably. Probably. Let's talk about this. Okay, this isn't like a full segment. I just wanted to show you this because I thought it was really funny. There's a guy who is like a kind of well-known incel on Twitter and X, and I don't know if he's serious anymore. I don't know, but he posted this. He's like, gamers, many of you have asked me, where's the evidence that they uglyified female characters in Doom the Dark Ages? Check around 10 minutes 30. id Software should have featured a beautiful woman instead. And this is his example of an ugly woman. Like, it can't be serious, right? It's got to be a troll. It's got to be a troll. Like, there's no way. There's no way. You know? And this is, you know, people, there are, to be clear, there are some people who actually probably would think, like, that she's unattractive or something. But I think this is, like, such an obvious, very public thing. It's got to be a troll. Like, there's no way they're serious. But this, I mean, it goes back again to the thing I've talked about a lot recently in the gaming industry, which is Poe's Law, which is just that without a clear indicator of the author's intent, any parodic or sarcastic expression of extreme views can be mistaken by some readers as a sincere expression of those views. In other words, you eventually get to the point where somebody joking about how insane, like a totally insane perspective, you can't tell the difference between that and somebody that actually believes it because they're both so ridiculous. Same with this one. Well, actually, if you slow it down to 75%, there's some real smooth brains out there. This is in response to a video of AC Shadow's gameplay where Nawe is climbing up the side of a castle with her grappling rope or grappling hook thing. And somebody says, 118, that was smooth as hell. That's a clip where she's doing like a backflip somersault thing that's, to be fair, quite smooth. That was smooth as hell. And this guy says, not really. Put it on 0.25x. He just realized, brother, I don't play the game at 25% speed. He's like, yeah, if you slow it down and then you also like go frame by frame, you can find that the animation transitions between these two animations and then you can see a little bit of a shift. It's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? If you want to pause a video to like zoom in and show something where you're like, hey, there's a ton of pop in here, or hey, this character's T-posing in the corner, or hey, over here, this is glitching out. Let me zoom in and show you, or I'll slow it down so I can show you. We do that on stream because when you're watching this stream on a phone and it's compressed as hell through the live streaming, whatever, I don't even, encoder, I guess, often detail can be lost. So zooming in, pausing, pointing stuff out, that's fair. When you're like trying to put stuff at super slow speeds to complain about animation quality, it's like, I think we're trying to be upset about stuff at this point. Like the transition between the one animation to the rope throwing animation, and then it goes up. But this is the magic of video games, when you blend those things together so that when you're playing the game, it doesn't feel jagged. And it's just like, You know, when people are doing stuff like that, it's like, I think we're trying real hard at this point. If you don't like the game, that's totally fine. If you don't want to play the game, if you don't want to buy the game, cool. But at this point, I think we're trying really, really hard. I think we're trying too hard, you know? 1080p 60 Luke looks so sexy. How dare you? Oh my God. Now that's a handsome woman. Exactly. Thank you, Enigma. Thank you. That's a handsome woman. Yeah, I just think a lot of the people are trolling. K Music says it's either a troll or porn addiction. Call it. I don't know, dude. I think a lot of the people like that make the posts you see on X, a lot of the guys that have like very visible platforms like that, I think a lot of them are trolling. Frankly, I mean, because sometimes they say stuff that's just so freaking ridiculous. You're like, there is no way a real human being said that. I know there are some people that are like this out there in the world, but I think it's such a small number. It's like those people that actually think it are probably 50, 60 likes on that post, and the other 50 people are acknowledging the troll and are like kind of memeing on it. So, but then eventually the whole thing just starts to consume itself as well. Like, did you see the whole thing with Grums? He came and said that he was excited for Monster Hunter. And then his own like followers started freaking out because like, no, they're actually woke now. You're not allowed to like Capcom. And it's like, okay, you really can't like anything now. Yeah. Yeah, it's almost Monster Hunter Wilds release date, February 27th. This is the game to support instead of Avowed and AC Shadows, which also launch in Q1. And then his own followers started raging at him. He's like, getting replies that Capcom has gone woke. They certainly have published things about their company that are sus. If you have examples for Monster Hunter Wilds specifically, post it here and I'll take a look. Like, they're literally not allowed to like games. Like, the revolution just devours itself at the end of the day. Like, it's crazy, dude. It's crazy. And at some point, if you're following people that make it impossible to like games, maybe they're not gamers. Maybe they're not like actually somebody that's looking out in the best interest of the industry, you know? It's ridiculous. But it's very funny at the same time. Because it's just like, guys, I think we're getting silly. I think we're being stupid at this point. Like, some of those posts, man, I can't tell if they're serious or not. And so I kind of choose to believe that they're not serious because otherwise I get sad and depressed. Loxy, I had a discussion with a viewer of yours in this chat Friday where the guy insists that Trump would make Microsoft not fund woke games anymore. Like, brother, that's not how that works. Really? Well, it's just with all these things, I think you can benefit a lot from just asking for definitions. Like, okay, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? What do you mean by any of these terms? And if you can answer clearly and you have a definition that we can work with, okay, we can work with it. But I feel like a lot of the time it's just used as a catch-all term for games that like you don't like, or for games that force diversity over gameplay quality, or for certain like political themes and topics over something that like is grounded within the game universe. Like, those are specific things we can talk about and address. Like, having a black character in a game is not like, does not make it problematic, which is I think where some people get confused, it seems. Like, if you want to talk about a random thing where you're like, hey, we're playing a game where it's really serious and dark, and then the characters start talking about student loans and eating the rich. Okay, well, yeah, maybe that's not a great thing for the sake of the game. Doesn't really help the game's narrative or anything. But it's just so hard to follow nowadays, because eventually, you know, every revolution kind of devours itself. And I mean, you're seeing it with some of these guys that they want to like Monster Hunter, a game where you hunt monsters, and their own followers are telling them, like, trying to cancel them for wanting to play Monster Hunter because you're not allowed to do it. It's just the flip side of the Puritan side that was trying to get games like Kingdom Come Deliverance canceled because it was too white. And then this is just the flip side, where it's people trying to cancel games because, like, they're not purely white, or because they have, you know, the publisher did this thing or published this game in this way that we find problematic. And it's just two sides of the same coin. It's just people freaking out because you didn't pass their purity standards. That's no way to function, you know? It's no way to function. Anyway, let's shift and talk about something else. About time, right? It's about damn time. What's in the jar? Your hopes, dreams, and aspirations. Yeah. Let's talk about something else. Do I want to do DLSS, or let's you know what? Let's talk about Destin's interview. Let's do that. Yeah, it's a candle. if that wasn't clear, yeah, it's a candle. Maxwell, thank you for that. Phil dismissed the possibility of dropping parity clause with Series S. How long until Rockstar cancels the Xbox version of GTA 6 because of parity? I would find it amazing if GTA 6 is able to run on the Series S. Somebody far smarter than me, that understands hardware and tech stuff way better than I do, said that the expected performance of the Switch 2 should be scalable enough to run games that run on the Series S. So if a game is capable of running on the Series S, in theory, it should be portable to the Switch 2. So, if that's the case, it would not surprise me if you saw like a GTA 6 port to the Switch 2 or something out of nowhere. So to be clear, it's mostly a memory thing that they're comparing it to. If it's scalable graphically and they support like not using ray tracing and things like that, then, you know, it'd be much easier. But I think with all of this, the Series S, without a doubt, has been kind of a train wreck disaster for Microsoft with how it's affected third-party support and also the public perception that Xbox is the weakest platform. Even though like the Series X is a super capable machine, because everything has to run in tandem with the Series S, the perception is that that's holding everything back. And, you know, very well, it probably is. I mean, you have to develop for the lowest common denominator. And if the weakest machine you have to develop for is the Series S, then everything has to run on the Series S. Like, there's nothing else to say. I mean, it just, that's what's happening, you know? So that is interesting. I find it kind of disappointing if he confirmed that and said that they're not going to even consider removing that. But I also understand it. It was a promise he made at the start of the generation, was that if you buy a Series S, you'll be able to play everything else that everybody else is getting on the Series X. That was the promise he made. And to back off it now would be kind of lame and stupid. So we'll see. Isn't this why BG3 got delayed? Definite evidence is holding the gen back. Yeah, they couldn't get the split screen co-op working, and so they had to get a variance basically from Phil Spencer to port it to the Series S just without that feature, which they were allowed to do. And I think that that's okay. Like if there's just a different version of the game on the Series S and it's just missing one of those extra little cool features, I think that's understandable. The problem is, like, where does it stop? You know, like, you want to get Black Myth Wukong running on the Series S, but to do it, this one boss fight doesn't work. Do we just cut that boss fight out and you just skip it on the Series S version? Like, that's lame. So, you know, there just gets to be a point where it doesn't make sense to bring it to that platform. You know, it just doesn't make sense. And I think that's where some of these devs have run into, but we'll see. Paired with this, I want to touch on this interview that Phil did. Boop, boop, boop. News segment. So, actual friend of the channel, Destin, he did an interview with Phil. If you don't know, Destin used to work with IGN until very, very recently. Just went solo, is doing his own thing. You should go subscribe like this. Look at that fun little animation to his channel. And check out his Patreon and all of that stuff. But he just did an interview with the one and only Phil Spencer to kind of kickstart this foray into the solo side of content creation, which is a pretty solid get to get an interview with the one and only Phil Spencer. Makes me wonder if I should try to do that. I tried to get an interview with Todd. He was not interested. I don't know. They never really directly responded to the request, which doesn't surprise me. You know what? Fair. But who knows? Maybe we could talk to Phil. I did see Phil at Summer Game Fest in June, and he was very, very nice. Very, very nice guy. Shorter than I thought he would be. You know, he's a little shorter. Sarah Bond was also way shorter than I thought. Like 5'4" or 5'5", like way shorter than I thought. That's always the interesting thing about these events is you see these people like in settings like this where they're just on camera and they look totally normal. But then you see them actually standing and walking around and you're like, oh yeah, you're a real human being. You're real. You know, it's always funny to me. But having said that, that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about here, other than it looks like Phil lost some weight. Phil is looking actually quite healthy here. I don't know if it's just me, but it looks like he's actually lost a good amount of weight from even over the summer when they were doing their Xbox showcase and he was on camera. So good job, Phil. He's looking good. With this though, Destin had a whole interview. I will have it linked in the stream clip that we do. You should go watch the whole thing because there's a lot of really interesting questions in here, like simple questions you would expect him to be asked more often, like why buy an Xbox? If everything is an Xbox, why should I buy one? Possible Steam support, the Xbox Series S parity question we were talking about earlier on stream, all of these things. So we're not going to go through the whole thing because we don't want to do that. Oh, is this the inspector? No. Okay. No, it's not. I was like, I have an inspector coming to approve our basement finishing, and so I'm watching my Ring doorbell closely to make sure that I can let him in. And what are you guys talking about? I see Nemesis just says chubby people always look weird, wrinkly, and old when they lose weight. Well, I've been losing weight, so what does that say about me? Oh, God. How dare you? I think he looks good. He's okay. Anyway, moving forward, one of the questions that they asked in this was with exclusivity platforms, or exclusivity of platforms, bringing games to different platforms, all of that stuff. An Xbox handheld, technical leap, AI with Xbox tech, redefining Xbox fans, and, you know, some more fun conversations with all of this stuff. Indie, more games coming, Phil and Xbox's legacy, all of this. One of the interesting things I'm excited to see is how the end of this generation goes before we look at a segment of this, because typically you see like one executive head up a generation and then a new executive heads up the next generation because they want fresh ideas, right? And that's typically what you would see. And that's what we saw with PlayStation, where they had Sean Layden mostly heading up the PS4 generation from his position. And then with the PS5 generation, you saw Jim Ryan take over. And we all know kind of how that went. But Phil has pretty much been in control of the Xbox One generation and now the Series X generation. And I really wonder if he's going to stick it out into the next one or if he's planning kind of an exit and a retirement. I don't know. If his vision has been realized, but there's a lot of interesting things that are discussed in these in this interview. But the one thing I found interesting was a discussion over Xbox's identity. And this has been one thing that I think has been so fascinating, is that Xbox for a long time, you know, is very recognizable. You've got the console, you have the controller, you have the exclusives to that platform, whether it be Halo or you got Gears, you know, there's plenty of things that you could point to. But in the last handful of years, that identity has been majorly shifted. And you've seen it reflected in some of the most hardcore fanboys, for lack of a better term, that like when it was announced Xbox was going to be bringing certain games to PlayStation, they literally burned their merch. Like we watched it on stream, a guy that put his Xbox Series S into a toilet and peed on it. There's another guy that did like a spoken word poetry rap about how devastated he was at Xbox's new direction. Like there were people that had actual mental breakdowns as a result of some games going to PlayStation. Okay. It was bizarre. It was bizarre. But I think that that's a reflection perhaps of this shift in direction where Xbox, just frankly, they've decided not to play the game that they had been losing for a decade. They have not been able to maintain a competitive level with PlayStation when it comes to exclusives throughout the entire PS4 era. Even back, coming out of the PS3 era, they were doing very, very well, and PlayStation had their own troubles in the PS3 era, to be sure. But they started to kickstart exclusives, and those started to drive console sales into the PS4 gen, and they dominated the PS4 gen. They've been dominating the PS5 gen with console sales, with market share and all of that. And at some point, Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, of course, the parent company of Xbox, and Phil Spencer, they sat down, talked about it. And it's pretty clear. They just said, why would we keep fighting a losing game and a losing battle if we can make our own battle, our own thing that we can win at? Why would we not do that? And that's what they've chosen to do. So instead of playing PlayStation's game that they're very good at playing, they've decided to go a different route and focus on distribution first and foremost. And that's really why Microsoft is a multi-trillion, with a T, trillion-dollar company, because they are some of the best in the world, if not the best in the world, at distributing software. And that's what they're going to do with their games. They're going to make games, which are just fancy programs, and then they're going to distribute them across as many platforms as possible, selling it to anybody and everybody that wants to play it. And that's been reflected in their marketing campaigns where it's, this is an Xbox, this is an Xbox, this is an Xbox, this is an Xbox. Everything's an Xbox because they want you to be able to play their games no matter where you are. As long as you can give them money, they want you to give them your money. They will take it. There's no exclusivity. They've just decided not to bother playing PlayStation's game. And that brings up other questions like, okay, why even buy the Xbox hardware then? It's a great question. There might not be a reason to buy their hardware except for playing those games earlier and having some other perks. Like for me, one of the actual compelling perks and advantages of Xbox as a platform right now is the Play Anywhere program, where you can buy a game like, let's say, Indiana Jones. You can play it on your Series X in your living room, or Series S, whatever, no judgment. And then you can close the game, come downstairs to your game den or bedroom or whatever, and play the game where you left off on your PC. And then you go up and lay in bed, and on your phone with a little controller, backbone, whatever adapter, you play the game through xCloud, all picking up your saves where you left off, and you only bought the game once. In this case, it was Game Pass, but you get what I mean. It's supporting Play Anywhere, right? That's a really compelling offering, and I really like that offering. And it's made me pause and go, if I want to buy one of these games, these single player games, I'm like, oh, maybe I should play it on Xbox because I can play it anywhere. That's a huge advantage over PlayStation, which, yes, they do have their own cloud tech. Yes, they do have the portal to play on the go. But it's nowhere near as robust as Xbox's infrastructure at the moment. They'll get there, but they're not quite there yet, in my opinion. But all this, builds into this identity issue. Ooh, thank you. A double cheeseburger. My wife spoils me. Chat says hi, by the way. They were upset I didn't say chat says hi earlier on the phone. Hi, how are you? How's the dentist?
Prescribed me a really sexy night guard because who grinds her teeth in her sleep?
Ooh. Wow.
It's called I'm Almost 30 and I'm going to be wearing a retainer and a night guard.
I probably should. I mean, I remember getting a retainer when I got my braces off at like 14, 15. I think I wore it for like 2 weeks and then I stopped and I haven't put it in. So, I mean, I threw it away years ago.
I got a retainer when I was 6 and I wore it until I was 28 and I became addicted to sleeping with a retainer.
Yeah.
So breaking that habit was really, really hard. And I went in and I'm like, I don't use a retainer anymore. They were like, why?
Well, you should.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah. Does Luke have kids? Yeah, I've got 2 little fellas.
We have so many kids.
2 little fellas.
Overwhelmed with
Two
children.
little dudes. Thank you, MPCDN. Thank you. The inspector will be here at some point. Oh. Our cats. Man, they're funny. But that used to be their room. That used to be their room, the unfinished room. And since it's been finished or being finished, they're of course not allowed in there anymore. So we moved their litter box to the laundry room and did all this stuff. Oh, thank you. Love you. But now they're freaking out because like, that used to be our quiet space. That used to be our safe space. And now they're not allowed in there anymore. It's pretty cute. So I'll catch up on the super chats in just a minute, guys, just so you know. I just want to get through this before I lose my train of thought. So anyway, what was I saying? Competitive advantage, the Play Anywhere stuff. Okay. But going back to whether or not there is a reason to buy an Xbox like console, that's a valid question. And that's one that I'm not sure if there is a solid answer. But here's the thing. I don't think Xbox really cares. Like, would they rather you play on an Xbox Series X? Yeah. But if you're buying one of their games for $70, cool. Xbox has Game Pass, and maybe that's how they maintain a competitive edge is, yeah, if you want to play all these games, whether it's South of Midnight, Fable, Expedition 33, the Ninja Gaiden, you want to play all these games for a really good value, get Game Pass, but you need an Xbox for that. Or you can pay for pay $70 for it on PlayStation, do it that way. That in and of itself could be a very significant value proposition, or at least for people to keep an Xbox on their media center, even if they also have a PlayStation. But all of this builds into the core question is whether or not Xbox is losing its identity. And maybe that's a good thing because they're getting a new identity. They're finding something else and the brand is changing. And I think that this is the key point, which is just that Xbox is changing. The game is changing. The industry is changing. And for people that are used to business as usual, that feels bizarre. It feels like Xbox has given up, but they aren't really. I mean, they are kind of giving up in this one fight, but they're creating this new fight over here for which Sony isn't really going to counter it as far as I can tell. They're happy. They get a cut of every copy of Sea of Thieves that sells on their store. Xbox is happy because they're making money on every single copy that's sold. So it's just kind of a new normal. But let's see what Phil says in regard to Xbox losing its identity. And again, I recommend you go watch the whole interview, subscribe to Destin, go show him some support. But let's see what he says in this snippet of the interview.
Absolutely perfect sense to me. I do think that some fans are a little concerned about how should I say it? Xbox losing its
about you destroying the brand. No, I'm kidding. You never know if that's what they're gonna say,
identity, maybe. What would you say to address those concerns from longtime fans?
Well, one, I hear them, right? I'm pretty active in our player base and I'm active in the community. I listen. I think our identity will continue to evolve, which it frankly always has. But when I hear concerns about, is my library of games safe? Am I still going to be able to play the games? And I think over the years, I'm proud of the commitment we've shown to respecting purchases on our platform through back compat, through cross entitlement, Xbox Play Anywhere, through crossplay, things that we've done to enable people to continue to play. So I hear that when I think about I see the investments we're making in platform and how we want Xbox to show up in multiple places and your library to be available there. When I think about buy to stream, so if I buy a game, I'll be able to stream it to devices. Like, this is all about making sure that your library of games that you own on Xbox are playable in multiple places. So I'd say it's an evolution of our identity, but I believe it's an identity that this industry needs. When you think about where this industry is now and you see the challenges, the business challenges that are out there for many companies, that I think us keep making games more accessible to more people has just got to be front and center for us as an industry, so we continue to see great games that we've seen over the years.
Which is interesting, because of course, like, he is plugged into the community. If you're not familiar, like, he has been found playing all sorts of games. People, like, his Xbox profile is public. You can see what he's playing on any given day. It's actually kind of funny to just see what he's playing and where he's finding time for it. But one of the other things is, like, one of my biggest TikToks ever, funnily enough, was this one actually looking at somebody that found Phil Spencer playing Fallout 76. And in this, like, clip, he's basically playing it, and the people wanted to make sure it was him, so they did a thing to trigger a unique achievement thing to identify it on his whatever, you know, profile, and it was actually him. I mean, they actually found Phil Spencer. P3 is his username. And so he is plugged in, he plays these games, and everybody is able to see that he does. Whereas, you know, like somebody like Jim Ryan, I don't think Jim Ryan touched a controller the last 20 years. I just don't think he's a gamer. But like, I think at some point, as the leader of a company, you have to acknowledge when there is feedback that's contrary to the direction you're taking the company, and you have to be firm enough in your decision to stick to it. You can't just, you know, follow suit with whatever whims are guiding, you know, the ship at this given moment. Sometimes you have to kind of take a firm stance and go this way because you know that's the right direction, or you really believe that's the right direction. And, you know, a great example is of somebody with like vision would be like Steve Jobs. If you don't remember, I wonder if I can find it. It was the Microsoft CEO saying iPhone would flop because it didn't have a real keyboard. Yeah, I think this is it.
The iPhone and the Zune, if I may. The Zune was getting some traction, then Steve Jobs goes to Macworld and he pulls out this iPhone. What was your first reaction when you saw that?
$500 fully subsidized with a plan? I said, that is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine. Now, it may sell very well or not.
Like, they were following the winds of the industry that they were operating in, you know, because they were trying to do their own phone things, whether it's BlackBerry or eventually the Microsoft phone. But they were listening to what everybody was telling them they wanted, whereas Steve Jobs famously said, no, my job is to give people what they want before they know they want it. You know, and that's just a difference in leadership direction. And that means sometimes you're going to upset your own customers because they're like, what the hell are you doing? But then hopefully your vision is accurate and fair and balanced, and you actually lead everybody into something they didn't even know they wanted yet. As for Phil Spencer with Xbox, oh my God, I just rewound and I got quite the freeze. I'm sorry, Phil. Please let me back. I have to move the frame so I get that avowed review code. But anyway, with all this, I think that there is a compelling argument that Xbox's identity is being lost, and, you know, when Halo is available on PlayStation and, you know, Starfield and all these other exclusives are going to every single platform, it kind of devalues what an Xbox is. And that might be right, but it might also be right that this is what makes the business sustainable. You know, but maybe both are right. Maybe it does devalue the brand, but the brand wouldn't really be able to exist unless they were going this direction. Because this is the other piece, is if they tried to play the PlayStation game of Starfield's exclusive, Indiana Jones is exclusive, Doom is exclusive, Fable's exclusive, all of these games are just on Xbox. They could play that game, and eventually, you know, over years and years and years, they could grind out more market share and get people to buy their consoles again. But ultimately, it would just be leaving so much money on the table. And from their perspective, it's just unnecessary. They're like, why would we leave so many hundreds of millions of dollars on the table? Which, I mean, again, it's a business. It's not a charity thing. They need to make money. And if these games are launching just on Xbox and they're not turning a profit for Microsoft, it doesn't work to greenlight more, you know? It just doesn't make sense. So they've got to shift and they've got to change their strategy and their goals. And that seems to be what they're doing. So I understand why old school Xbox fans are peeved at the direction they've taken it, bringing everything to everywhere, making nothing really exclusive. And I think a lot of it is also this bitterness because for so long, Xbox fans wanted exclusives and now they're actually getting lots of games produced, but they're not exclusive. And so they're like, hey, what the hell, man? Like, we're missing out. And so I can understand the frustration there, but I just think this is where they're at, and they are fully committing at this point to this new direction. And I mean, that's even something when somebody, when Destin in this case, asked about Starfield. I mean, this was Phil's response.
In Starfield, Indiana Jones has an exclusivity window, to be fair. Can you solidify that Starfield's staying put for the time being?
No, like I'm not, there's no specific game that this kind of goes back to my red line answer.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no reason for me to put a ring fence around any game and say this game will not go to a place that it would find players, where it would have business success for us. What we find is we're able to drive a better business that allows us to invest in great game lineup like you saw. And that's our strategy, right?
So even when asked specifically, is Starfield locked into Xbox? He won't say that. He's like, nope, I'm not going to say that it's going to be stuck exclusive for now even, which to me makes me think that it is coming probably by the end of the year to PlayStation and stuff like that. Does it do gangbuster numbers there? Probably not, but like it still will do more money and more numbers than it's been doing, which is 0 on those platforms. So why not? But with all this, I mean, it's fascinating to see the new direction. We're going to see more and more of these projects outlined over the next like few months, especially in June with their showcase, and I'm here for it because they've got some big games on the lineup, some big games, and I have a feeling they have some tricks up their sleeve for the like later this year as well. So buckle up. Let me catch up on these real quick. I see Sean is back. Hey man, I've not caught a live stream for quite a while. New segment. I am divorced officially. Met a beautiful lady around 7 months ago and couldn't be happier. Been watching in spare. Looking good. Thank you, my friend. That's wonderful to hear that you found a new lass and you got everything sorted out with divorce. That's crazy. That I guess it hasn't been a while because that would have been like early 24, late 23. Yeah, so it's been a minute. I'm glad to hear you're doing well, my friend. It's great to see you. I'm glad to hear things are good. Sean also gifted 5 memberships. Thank you for that, and welcome everybody who got the memberships. And also 25-month membership re-up from Sean. Thanks, guys. Have been watching chat, just not chatting live because work is crazy. Indeed. Sean is a busy boy for real. To also catch up on these real quick. Neardridge, thank you for the 10. Hey, I've watched Asmon's recent videos by AC Shadows and I'm crying from sadness as they are over-hating the game and they basically didn't give it a chance. I've already pre-ordered it and I'm going to enjoy it. I don't know what Asmon's been saying about it. It doesn't really surprise me that he's not into it, but that's mostly because it's just not a game that, I mean, honest question, has Asmon played any Assassin's Creed games? My understanding is he's more of an MMO type player. Like, I don't think it was ever going to be a game for Asmon, and I think that that's kind of understood. I don't know how many people are like in those communities would be interested in the franchise. No, but he said he's going to play this one. Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure for him it's just easy, free views for sure. But you know, if he's not into it, that's fine. Not everybody has to like every game. You know, that's totally fine. Michael, thank you for the 2. Will AC Shadows flop? If so, what'll happen to Ubisoft? It's currently like on PlayStation leading the pre-order charts. Apparently they're very pleased with the pre-order numbers. We'll see how that converts, because it's not just pre-orders, it's also day 1 sales, day 2 sales, word of mouth after reviews, if it reviews well. There's a lot of other components to it, but as of right now, they expect it to do well. I don't currently see any evidence of it flopping. Because a flop has like a typical colloquial definition, which is it's like such a disaster it loses lots of money and all that. It doesn't look like Shadows is on track for a flop like some other flops we've seen. But you know, time will tell. If it reviews poorly, I mean, that could be the nail in the coffin. If it reviews really well, that could really, really help it. But it just, we don't really know the specifics of those pre-order numbers. They're not going to share those with us, but even inside leakers, so people who aren't just like saying stuff for sake of marketing and investor relations, even people who are leaking, who have access to the numbers, are saying, no, they're pretty good. And you can see it on the sales charts out, like on PlayStation's store and stuff like that. It's, I think it's currently higher than KCD2. And KCD2 launches in like, what, a little over a week. So it'll make money. It's just a question of how much money it makes. And is it enough to keep the entire business afloat, you know? KCD is kind of a niche game. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly more niche than Assassin's Creed. People forget how massive Assassin's Creed is with like the more casual audience. It's a big franchise. Luke, will AC Shadows have proper side quests? I mean, not like the ones in Valhalla. Honest question, honest answer, Valerio. I honestly don't know, because what we played had pretty much no side content playable. There was like a side quest we were able to accept, but the objective was just outside the invisible wall for our playable area for the demo. So we weren't able to do the side quest, just because of how they cut the demo. So I honestly don't know. I hope it's not like Valhalla, because Valhalla's stuff drove me crazy, but I don't know. And they've talked a little bit about it, but still not super precisely. From my finance degree perspective, what happens to Ubisoft? I mean, most likely Shadows does okay. They investigate restructuring. Tencent comes in, buys up more shares. They might split off and let the Guillemot family take a few franchises and studios with them, and then Tencent kind of runs Ubisoft while the Guillemot family owns a minority stake. But I do think something happens within Ubisoft by the end of this year. I mean, I don't think that they will stay publicly traded as is through the year. Yeah. Monster Hunter Wilds will sell around 10 million units before the end of the year. I mean, yeah, Monster Hunter is going to be freaking massive. Monster Hunter is gigantic. Okay. Do I have anything else here? Mm-hmm. Okay. I guess we should touch on this. Speaking of Shadows, do I think Split Fiction will do well? Yeah. No, I mean, Hazelight. Their games are so freaking fun. I'm excited for that one. That's gonna be fun. We should touch on this. Did you guys see I dropped a pickle on my shirt? Now there's a stain. That's what I get for trying to eat a hamburger. Okay. Let's touch on this. So, sorry. News segment. So, I said in my preview, where I played AC Shadows, I said that I don't really, like, I'm not convinced of Yasuke's inclusion as a character in AC Shadows right now. And some like hardcore Assassin's Creed fans said that I was dismissing him out of hand. That one guy on Reddit says I was trying to dog whistle to people, I guess implying I'm racist for thinking that. I don't know. I probably can't say racist in the intro of this, Jacob. Otherwise, YouTube will freak out. Let me try this again, okay? This is how YouTube works, a little inside scoop. If you say certain things in the first minute of a video, YouTube freaks out and like shuts you down, doesn't promote it, doesn't do it. Like, it's really funny. So let me try this again. So as I said in my preview, I'm not currently convinced of Yasuke's inclusion as a character, or a protagonist rather, in AC Shadows. I upset some Assassin's Creed fans for saying that. They thought I was like trying to signal secretly to my fans that Yasuke is bad because of X, Y, and Z, and I was actually like hating on it. When, if you watch the video, I feel like I explained pretty clearly why I feel that way. It's because Yasuke does not play like an assassin, and this is an Assassin's Creed game. So I don't really know why he's a playable character if he doesn't play like an assassin in the game. And he's supposedly like 50% of the gameplay content. I mean, it's like half Yasuke, half Naoe. You can choose to play with one over the other for the vast majority of the game, is my understanding. But I just don't know why we have a non-assassin as a protagonist in an Assassin's Creed game, you know? And it's not like we're doing something cool like, oh, he's actually, you know, it's like Rogue, where it's like, oh, it's a Templar thing and it's inverse. It's not even like that as far as I understand it. It's just fundamentally, he does not have the same abilities. He can't do parkour. He doesn't have a grapple hook like Naoe. He's not an assassin. And so that's why I just am not convinced of his inclusion as a protagonist. And I think that the reason that they chose to have him here was because they wanted to pursue the samurai gameplay style and then also the ninja gameplay style. That's what the creative director told me, at least. And they realized putting both of those in one character would just turn it into a Superman or Superwoman character that has all of these abilities, and it just wouldn't even feel right. It would be like, oh, it's a ninja samurai, and it would just start to, it would be tough to work. And let's be honest, people would just immediately go, oh, so it's Ghost of Tsushima. Joke's on them. People are doing that anyways, but still, you kind of, at least you see what I mean when they said they wanted to separate it. But either way, I just don't think it flows that well. But as you can see in this article from Games Radar, Assassin's Creed Shadows devs want you to know that Yasuke isn't an assassin, and that means he's not getting any of those classic assassin abilities. And this follows through in many, many ways. So in an interview with Games Radar Plus, Associate Game Director Simon Lemay-Comtois, I think. Simon, I did meet Simon. Simon's a really, really cool dude. He said, Yasuke is not an assassin because the narrative makes sense that he is not. Elsewhere, he said that a big part of Yasuke's importance in the plot of AC Shadows stems from his existence as an outsider, someone who can find his way into a distinctly Japanese story without having to wholly understand Japanese culture. They didn't reveal any story details, so we don't know exactly what will happen to Yasuke by the end of the story, but it's clear, where he's clear, quote, he works with fellow protagonist Naoe, but he's not an assassin and he doesn't have to be. As a result, they followed up and asked some key questions. Does Yasuke have eagle vision? No. He needs to not have it so you can play different with him than you play with Naoe. He doesn't have a hidden blade. He doesn't have the ability to do parkour. He doesn't have the ability to use the grappling hook thing. He just simply is not an assassin. And so he plays like he's not an assassin, which on the one hand is a good thing. I appreciate that they didn't just make two of the same character. That's kind of what they did with Syndicate, if you played that, where it was Evie and Jacob Fry, and by the end of the game, they basically play the same. The idea was that Eevee would be like the stealth character, Jacob would be the reckless melee character, but by the end of the game, they're pretty much the same. Like they're interchangeable. And so you're basically just picking whichever one you like the look of more, or you like the cosmetics more, or maybe you like their voice actor more or actress more. It's really minimal in terms of why you would choose one over the other when it comes to gameplay, because they're pretty much the same. With Yasuke and Nawe, they're trying very actively to make them play totally differently, which again, I appreciate, but I just still am not convinced that in this type of game, we needed two protagonists. Like going all the way back 4 or 5 years ago when they were first designing AC Shadows, the decision to have two protagonists, I can understand why they made the choice, but I'm like, you're making an Assassin's Creed game. Maybe we don't need to explore the samurai fantasy. Maybe just focus on the shinobi, just focus on the ninja stuff, and do that amazingly well. And as Joraptor pointed out, this, like, they pretty much took all the gameplay stuff that Eivor had and just cut it in half and split it between the two of them. Yasuke has like 3 core melee weapons available to him. It sounds like the expansion is going to add a new one. Nawe has 3 core melee weapons she's able to use and pick from, whereas in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, there were 6. So they've just kind of taken it and split it and spread the love. They each have their own little like skill trees and stuff. They have their own stuff that can help them specialize, but it really does seem like they're both half of a character, but Nawe is more of a full character that plays like an assassin in this Assassin's Creed game. That's my impression after the preview, at least. So maybe when you play the whole game, Yasuke is much more compelling, and maybe there's more gameplay stuff I haven't seen, but like literally when you're out riding around the map, there is no reason to play as Yasuke other than there are occasional challenges for like archery where you go and shoot targets on horseback while riding, and those are only completable with Yasuke. At least those are the only ones we saw. And presumably there will be open world activities that are also exclusive to Nawe. But other than that, I have no idea why you would play with Yasuke when just exploring, other than maybe you just like his armor more, or maybe you just don't want to parkour in an Assassin's Creed game. But fundamentally, I mean, I think that this reflects one of the bigger frustrations and concerns I have with the game, is that it's built on the premise of you playing with 2 protagonists, kind of swapping between the two. But it's an Assassin's Creed game, and one of the characters literally is not an assassin. I don't care that it's Yasuke. I don't care that it's a former Jesuit slave. That has no bearing on this point. What I'm bringing up is that from a gameplay perspective, he's not an assassin, but he's a protagonist in an Assassin's Creed game. Make Yasuke a DLC? Yeah, I mean, I think you could do something like that. I think you could do a lot of stuff with him, or have him as a character you meet in the game. I think that could work. But one of my biggest frustrations with one of the recent trends within Assassin's Creed is that they often prioritize, like, I don't know, they make choices that don't fit with the theme. And with this, I'm like, you have the option to do a ninja in Japan. You did that with Nawe. Cool. But it feels like Nawe is half like fully developed because the other half of development time and resources you spent working on Yasuke. But I just don't know why anybody would play with Yasuke. And maybe that's just me not appreciating melee combat as much, but that's just kind of where I'm at. So we'll see. Again, there's a lot more to the game that we've not seen. There's a lot of questions I have with regard to side quests, open world exploration, and open world activities. I feel like there really has not been a lot showcased with those. There's been the one article they put out, but other than that, there's really just not much. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where the game ends up. But as of right now, honestly, I'm just not sure why anybody would play with Yasuke. Yeah. Did another Ubisoft studio just close down? Yeah, a tiny support studio that helped with Star Wars Outlaws, Avatar, and Far Cry. And then they did some downsizing at some other ones to remove redundancies and stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, in Valhalla, you're a Viking, and it's the best-selling one, so who knows? Yeah, so Valhalla was also... This is the other kind of problem for Ubisoft with investors, is that Valhalla launched, like, in the middle of COVID. And as a result, everybody was at home. It was also, like, a Viking escapist entertainment kind of game, you know? Like, it was not a questionable game from the outset. Like, people were stupid hyped for it. Sorry, that was loud. The announcement trailer from 4 years ago has like over 9 million views. I remember it shot up millions and millions of views within the first like day. And I mean, this trailer was really good. It's a really beautiful cinematic trailer, but people saw this and immediately ate it up, especially seeing the ship stuff. We were like, oh, and this is coming from the team that did Black Flag. Oh God, this looks amazing. I'm so here for it. So people were really excited to have a full open world, big budget game where you play as a Viking. Now, I ended up not liking it for an ocean of reasons, but I understand there's a lot of people that did, and it did sell really well. It made over $1 billion in revenue. It was massive. It was a huge success for them. And they supported it for like 2-3 years after launch, basically treating it like an MMO that's single player. It was a very unique thing. Really, really bizarre in the modern industry. But you can see like this did very, very well. But the question is, did it do really well just because of the type of game it was? Did it do really well because of the setting? Did it do really well because we were in COVID and people just were looking for stuff to play? It's probably a mix of all of that stuff. Probably. But I don't think there's any way where Shadows outperforms this because of all those extenuating circumstances that helped Valhalla explode and become the massive game that it was. And so investors are looking at it and they kind of are expecting you to outperform your last release. That's kind of what they want you to do. That's sort of the basic expectation in business, is that you do better this year than you did last year and the year before and the year before that. That's the like 101. And I just don't think that they will be able to, because this was such a unique game at such a unique time. But time will tell, I'm sure. But, you know, going back to this, Valhalla was also, of course, a marker of a sort of departure from old school Assassin's Creed inspirations and an approach towards more open world adventure. Odyssey was a huge step in that direction as well. Origins had much more Assassin's Creed stuff, which was the game that this team made before Valhalla. But it's just something I've been frustrated by, and at least like AC Shadows has Nawe, and that's a good thing. But it's also frustrating at the same time that they've gone and taken so many steps to build out Yasuke that I feel like Nawe, oh good, look at that, oh wow. Nawe's also, I think, not received as much focus and attention as she could have if they gave all attention to her as a character instead of just spreading it across 2 characters. But this was massive. Isn't it crazy to think that this trailer released from Ubisoft just 4 years ago and everybody was hyping it up, super excited, and now it feels like if Ubisoft does literally anything, they'll get panned for it. You know, isn't it crazy? Isn't it crazy how quickly things can shift? But that's part of what happens in the industry, is every few years the pendulum swings. EA is the target of rage one year, and the next year Warner Brothers does something incredibly stupid and then they get bashed, and then Ubisoft gets bashed, and it just always kind of swings between the different companies. And this year it really is, a lot of last year too, but this like 18-month period seems like Ubisoft is under all of it. Let's see, Nerdrich, thank you for that one. Did you hear about Ubisoft's layoffs? Ubisoft to shut down a studio in Leamington. Yeah, we looked at it earlier on stream. And so we did talk about it. It's a smaller support studio, and it's probably something they've had planned for months, because that's typically how this works. It's not really made impulsively, but you're going to see more. I mean, even if Shadows does really, really well, you'll see more layoffs, because again, like, Ubisoft is trying to please investors, and most investors believe that they believe that they should have half the employees that they do. So they kind of have to figure it out. Have you guys seen the DLSS 4 comparison videos? I mean, it looks very good. Bash Bethesda, Luke. Bash them harder, harder. You know, I would. I love to, but I mean, come on. DLSS has been cooking. I mean, it seems like it. Seems like it. I think they might have accidentally created a good AC game because Eivor was OP, and in my opinion, by nerfing that in Shadows and playing as Nawe, don't know if that's how it's spelled, only might be good. I think, you know, part of it was luck, part of it was the time and all of that. But I think Valhalla also, it just was a big, crazy escapist game at a time where people were very bored and stuck at home, and there weren't many games releasing. And so it just fit perfectly in that slot. The thing with Shadows, though, is it's coming out in a year in which there's a bajillion AAA games coming. That's why the delay to March is I think going to be really good for them. But it's just a very competitive year. There's a lot more, and they've made a lot of marketing mistakes with the game. And it's also, they're putting out a character, or putting out a game with a character that has ignited this like whole controversy and this debate over respect for the source material, and then also like pursuit of political, whatever the term would be, like virtue signaling, or I don't even know what you'd call it, but it's perfectly matched this discussion that's happening in the industry anyways. And so it's just, if Valhalla came out at the perfect time, Shadows might be coming out at the perfectly wrong time for the type of game that it is, you know, and the choices that they made. So it's very interesting. But let's see this about DLSS 4. Let's see this. DLSS 4, this is one, of course, like, this is the next big thing, you know. In NVIDIA, they announced their 50 series GPUs, and paired with it is the DLSS 4 stuff, and how it's a new transformer model. It's supposed to be way, way better. In some cases, it can even add more detail, and the image quality can be better than rendering natively, which, if true, is insane. So DLSS 4 is kind of like the big thing, and they've paired it with other announcements. Like, they want to have these AI paired materials and textures and shaders. So from the ground up, DLSS and all of these NVIDIA technologies are paired with the engines that are, you know, actually being used to build these games. And I think it all really hinges on how good DLSS is at retaining image quality or even enhancing it, but also things like latency, which become big questions when you talk about frame generation, which is the other big thing, where multi-frame gen, they want to add like 3 frames for every 1 rendered frame. That traditionally would introduce a ton of latency, which means like when they're showing it running in Marvel Rivals, it's like, who cares? It'll add so much latency, it's unplayable for a competitive shooter, so don't even bother showing me that. But if they can do it while retaining low latency, then it works. So there's so many like little bitty asterisks next to each one of these announcements and each one of these features, where it's like, it'll be good if you can also do this, but we just haven't gotten the chance to really dig that deep into it yet. But Digital Foundry has looked at it. In this case, this particular video, they're looking at DLSS 4 and the ray reconstruction upgrades and enhancements that they've made. And I mean, DLSS 3. I think they're on 3.7. That already was so much better than even FSR, like the newest FSR versions. So it's not even close. Not even close. So I can only imagine how much better this will be because NVIDIA is so far ahead of the competition with these like super sampling methods. It's not even funny, but yeah, anyway, let's watch it. First, let me respond to the super chat. Let's see. Thank you for the 5. Neelax, sorry, I was only half listening. You might have just went over this, but isn't Yasuke a direct response to the success of Tsushima? That's not, of course, I don't think they would tell me if it was, but Yasuke, it seems like they wanted to have a samurai character and they wanted to have a ninja character. They created Nawe for that, and then they thought it could be cool to have Yasuke as the character because he was an outsider in the actual historical record, brought into this noble's house. And so they thought that sounded cool. Yasuke's been featured in other, not just like media about that time period, whether it's TV shows, movies. He's even been in other video games set in that time period. So they really didn't think it was going to be a big deal. And they settled on that back in 2020 when they were first designing the game and figuring out what they wanted to do. They had no idea that in 2024, 2025, this would be like a hot button political issue. People talking about like how they're pandering. Like they had no idea that it would turn into this whole thing, which, you know. You asked them. I asked him why they chose Nawe and Yasuke as characters, and that's what they said. Like, we wanted the ninja fantasy, we wanted to pursue the samurai fantasy in terms of gameplay. Nawe fits her role. Yasuke fits his role because he's an outsider. He's coming into this world. He has no idea what the language or customs are, just like the player probably won't. And so he was a good canvas upon which the player could project themselves, which it's probably accurate. I mean, I don't think they're lying there. 2020, lol, sure they did. What do you mean? I mean, they literally designed this game in 2020. I mean, we know that. So are you saying they didn't? I can think of one major event that took place in 2020. Oh, okay. I see what you're referring to. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Whatever the reasons or whatever the other considerations were, that's what they told me. That's what they told me. Okay, let's talk about this. Okay, DLSS. Here we go. DLSS 4.
With the launch of RTX 5000 series GPUs, NVIDIA has released a new version of DLSS called DLSS 4. This version of DLSS replaces the tried and tested convolutional neural network, or CNN, version of DLSS that was first introduced in 2020. The replacement is a so-called transformer model, which requires more tensor core horsepower, but in return it promises quality upgrades to all the things DLSS does: super resolution.
I'm not smart enough for this. It's like, okay, trying to understand. Rendered frame, they render this frame. DLSS super resolution ray reconstruction transformer applies to that. Cool. They flip metering. Okay. Next gen DLSS frame generation paired with AI optical flow to blend the frames together. Maybe.
Reconstruction and even frame generation. Significantly, this new transformer model for DLSS is backward compatible with all RTX cards that have ever come out. So as long as your RTX GPU supports the DLSS type in use, you can run it. In this video, I will compare the older CNN model to the transformer model in a variety of scenarios specifically for DLSS ray reconstruction to see where and how the new model improves on quality. I will also investigate the performance of the new model to see how viable DLSS 4 is on older RTX GPU generations, including a cursory look at DLSS super resolution, which...
So it looks like the transformer model, at least in this thing, it's running about the same speed in terms of frame time, but it's also running at a slightly lower resolution.
I will cover more completely in an upcoming video after this
Or
one.
frame rate,
Without
not
wasting any
resolution.
time, I want to get right into this here by looking at ray reconstruction first, as I think this aspect of DLSS was the one where there was the largest room for improvement. Going back to ray reconstruction's launch in 2023 in Cyberpunk, this technology to denoise ray traced imagery was extremely promising in many areas. It had greater light responsiveness, reflection clarity, and more. But depending upon the lighting conditions and the game title, it exhibited a number of obvious and less obvious image quality issues. I thought this was most egregious in Cyberpunk 2077, where you could find severe issues with smudging and ghosting on mid-distant movement.
I remember that happening a lot. The like weird ghosting, and then things get really blurry just for some reason at certain distances.
Objects or objects that were indirectly lit. You could find examples of an over-sharpening and stylization occurring, which gave the image an oily and runny, unstable look. There could also be issues with how art was displayed, like skin. Based on my experience of testing across Alan Wake 2 and Cyberpunk 2077, the transformer model for DLSS 4 for ray reconstruction radically changes up the image resolve and in total fixes nearly all standing issues with ray reconstruction that I've detailed in past videos. So first let me start with detail and stylization. Basically that oily, painterly look that looks a little bit overly sharp that we see in ray reconstruction with the CNN model. Flicking the new model on and off here, for example, in Alan Wake 2, you can see the average difference that the model brings to image quality. Looking at the tiled walls, I think the increase in surface texture detail is pretty obvious just by flicking back and forth. You see more of the normal mapped surface detail coming through, and it shows off the little imperfections on the tiled surfaces and how those play with light. But the second thing I want you to recognize is how the lines of the tiles in the old CNN model in a side-by-side have a different look to them. Notice how the surface detail and the edges of the tiles where they meet the grout are actually not straight lines in the older model on the left here. Such details should be straight, but they have a wavy and feathery look to them. This is what I called stylization in the past, and I think it is a good descriptive term. Looking at the right on the transformer model, we can see that the lines of the tiles and the grout are now straight.
I don't see a difference. I mean, it's also compressed for the stream, but what he's pointing out is that like these lines, on the left, it's like very not straight as well, and it's also darker and chunkier. It just doesn't really follow, whereas here you actually retain the straightness of the line, and then you also see some gradation of lighting within the tile as it curves into the grout. It's a small detail, small touch, I grant you.
So it lacks that stylization. Going to other scenes of similar normal map detail like this, like at this wooden table we have here, we can see that more surface detail is preserved on the right in the new transformer model. But I also want you to notice the way the detail is resolving on the table. On the left, the lines of detail that are resolved kind of have a wavy, feathery look to them. A stylization that gives them a kind of painterly look.
You also notice how it's like kind of waving and shifting as time goes by. I'll rewind it a little and just watch how it almost looks like it's pulsating just ever so slightly.
Feathery look to them. A stylization that gives them a kind of painterly look. This is not desired image quality. On the right though, the resolve is more clinical, and this stylization is kept at a minimum or completely eliminated. This change of getting rid of stylization is arguably a lot more obvious in Cyberpunk 2077, where if you look at thinner lines like on these branches here, you can see how the old CNN model resolved them with this intense stylization. It kept them stable, arguably, but it also kind of fattened them out and gave them dark curves which made them look like they were painted on. The base art obviously was not that way. This removal of stylization on the right in the transformer model has a big effect on the image quality in total in the games with ray reconstruction, and arguably the most in Cyberpunk, where it occurred most regularly there. This is especially true of images in motion, where the stylization could be overriding and otherwise straight lines became wobbly, such as this door opening here. The lines on the door have a stylized waviness on them on the left, but much more detailed straight lines on the right.
Yeah, that one's not even close. That's ridiculous. I mean, you can just see a lot of stuff that's not even on the right side over here, not just in the waviness. Looks like somebody took a hammer to the lines, and it looks like there's crap inside that. Like it's all over the place. But then over on the right, it's just completely straight lines. That one's like night and day. Jeez. You know, and with this stuff, I can start to see why these companies are looking at DLSS and other upscalers as the future of enhancing visuals in games, because it used to be that you could just do a generational like GPU upgrade and then add some more RAM, improve the CPU, and boom, we've got a next gen game. It looks way, way better. Nowadays, it's not so simple. And so they're trying to find other ways of achieving big improvements and big leaps. And they feel like this is a solid solution. But the piece of it that I just still have not heard addressed or even acknowledged is that this can be used as a crutch with developers. Because like if your game is running so poorly that it can't crack like 15 frames a second at 1080p or at 1440p or certainly 4K, they're just going to be like, oh, well, just kick on FSR or DLSS performance, ultra performance mode, and boom, you can get playable frame rates. It's like, okay, but like this is supposed to enhance your experience, not make the experience playable, like the bare minimum. But I just feel like so often there's no discussion of that. And to be fair, there's lots of examples of games that are not optimizing based on having upscalers, like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. In their spec sheet that they put out, they very specifically said, this is a spec sheet for expected performance without upscalers. This is what you can expect to get without upscalers. And if you want more frames, you turn on DLSS, you turn on frame generation, that stuff. But the game will run functionally without any of that. So there's examples of people doing this, in my opinion, the right way. But then there's other examples. You know, a famous one was Star Wars Jedi Survivor, where the game ran like absolute garbage. And they just brute forced it with like FSR on console to upscale it. And it rendered at like 720p internally and then upscaled up to like 1440p or whatever it was. And it looked terrible. It looked like you smeared Vaseline all over your monitor. And, you know, they used the upscaler as a crutch to not optimize the game and pump it out faster, which was quite shameful, if you ask me. It was really too bad because that game is really, really good, but it just looks so terrible. Wukong too. Yeah, Wukong also had really bad upscaling implementation. I think it needed a little more love.
As it should be, as that is actually how the surface texture is. Another improvement is just generally in detail and stability in movement or when still. Objects like the fences here, with thin wires as we see in Alan Wake 2, have more of their lines completed in the chain links, and they also have more stability when the camera is still. So there's less flicker there on the right than on the left, although I would say that it is quite minor in the CNN model on the left. This extends to movement as well. Check out me here running forward as Saga in the town. Now watch as I ping-pong the footage. Here I would like you to concentrate both on the power lines above and the metal pole from which the street light is hanging. On the power lines, you can see there's greater stability there. There's just less flicker in the transformer model on the right on the thin lines. Looking at the metal pole, you can see that the edge of the metal pole when flush against the sky has less jaggies on it, and in motion that means it is anti-aliased better, leading to less obvious stair stepping. So detail is much higher in stills, with the stylization aspect being largely eliminated, and detail that is resolved tends to be more stable, less flickering, and less breakup in motion. Another larger upgrade to ray reconstruction is in how it treats skin. And this is related to the stylization I just talked about. With the old CNN model in games, it would bring out arguably too much of the detail in the skin from the normal maps. This gave people's faces a papery and kind of craggy look, which ended up aging them a lot in the subjective sense. In real life, light scatters beneath skin, which subjectively softens the harshness of light on the skin's surface. With good subsurface scattering, you should arguably see less detail on a skin surface as the light is diffusing there. The CNN model was not respecting this shading nuance. So if we look specifically at this example here in Cyberpunk of Jackie with the CNN model, we can see how there's a lot of detail in the skin of his face. The pores, the scars, the lines are all coming through, We can also notice how there's not a lot of reflective detail from the oils in his skin, and this is making his skin looking very detailed and dry. Notice also how the shadows are very gray and black looking. Now let's switch over to the transformer model, and we get that subsurface scattering look back. Less of the detail on the skin.
Hold on.
Transformer model, and we get that.
I want to go to the actual moment, the transition. Come on. Come on. Come on. Almost there. Almost there. Come on. I thought we were almost there. Maybe we're not almost there. Okay, CNN model. And then we go forward. I just want to do the toggle. I want to do the toggle between the two. Come on. Come on. If this isn't worth it. Okay, here. Back and forth. Yeah, I mean, I think you can see a lot of difference. Like, it's in the cheek. It's in the side of the head. All the freckles are perfectly preserved. The lines, the crow's feet. He is right. The color of the shadow even changes. It's interesting because it chooses not to upscale and like sharpen certain things. Like even the stubble on his jaw. It chooses not to upscale that. It chooses not to to sharpen. Sharpen's the right term. It chooses not to sharpen all that stuff. To leave that softer. That is really interesting.
Transformer model, and we get that subsurface scattering look back. Less of the detail on the skin surface is now visible, as light is now diffusing better across its surface. Also notice the shadowed regions have a reddish hue to them as light is permeating them underneath the surface of the skin. It is also important to notice how we can see some of the reflection detail coming back on the skin's raised areas, which wasn't there before, and it gives the skin a more oily look. I think this is a rather large difference.
Yeah,
when you
more oil.
See them back to back or side by side, and I think this is a quality change in favor of the new Transformer model. It is really obvious in this area of cyberpunk that we are seeing with Jackie, of course, but it is also evident in Alan Wake 2. Now, that game doesn't have the best subsurface scattering, I would say, in general, but for example, in this cutscene here,
dead
you
eyes.
can see that Alan Wake's cheek with the old CNN model has this normal map detail being broad out very intensely. If we switch to the Transformer model, we can see that that normal mapped detail is less obvious. And side by side, we can see the color of the areas in shadow is now redder in hue as light is diffusing beneath the surface of the skin. You can see this difference across any character in the game, really, when you bring the camera up close. And sometimes it's a bigger difference than in others.
I think all of this is just so interesting because, I mean, when you have to zoom in this close and do the side-by-sides and flip back and forth, then you can start to see the differences and be like, okay, yeah, that looks better. But I think that this is part of the reason why the feeling is as if we've just totally stagnated, because it used to be that you could just look at this game and then look at this game and see a massive improvement. You know, look at Batman Arkham Asylum, and then you look at Arkham City, and then you look at Arkham Knight, and you're like, oh my God, clearly there's a very clear improvement from, you know, generation to generation. But nowadays, I mean, we get an upgrade like this, and it's like, okay, yeah, no, I think I can see it. It's just as a result of that, the feeling that you're left with is like, yeah, it's technically better, but whenever you have to pause something and zoom in and enhance, it does start to feel like it's not as big of a leap forward. But I mean, DLSS 4 does seem like, you know, one of those incremental upgrades. It is an improvement. It's gotten better, but it's not that leap that I think some people were hoping for. The 5090 is going to be like a 29 or 25, 30% improvement over the 4090. The same with, I'm sure, the 5080 versus the 4080. It's probably all going to be in that 20 to 30% range in terms of raw performance. And then getting the multi-frame generation stuff will be cool, so long as it doesn't affect latency. But I just think it's another one of those, examples of how we're just past the point of big generational leaps, and we're more in the era of incremental improvements And that's just where we're at until there's some major breakthrough with GPU design or with some element of the rendering process. I just think this is where we're at. Silver Lightning, thank you for the 10 months. Ooh, baby. Our game got selected for a demo at an event during the Game Development Conference week. Ooh, baby. Super nervous and excited. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for telling us. If you want to share any more, please do in chat. That's wonderful. Let's see. So which 5090 you getting, Luke? The Founders Edition? I don't know, man. I don't know. I still cannot like get my 4090 to reach capacity or to be like, I do not feel like I need any upgrade, which is amazing for me to say. But if I were to upgrade my monitor and get a like 4K monitor that can do 240 hertz, then I might feel compelled. It's just like my monitor can do stuck on my, I got this new like mat so my chair doesn't just destroy the carpet under me, but the wheels keep getting caught on the little mat. I don't know, if I could get a monitor that was above 120 hertz, then maybe I'd consider it, but we'll see. Silver Lining, is your game GTA 6 perchance? Yeah, 4090 is overkill. Yeah, it almost certainly is overkill for 99.9% of applications. I would agree with that. You need like a crazy cutting edge monitor to be able to push it. Like it can run most 4K games at like 150, 160 frames. Most games at 4K at 150, 160 frames. So if you have a 120 hertz monitor, you're totally fine. If you get a 240 hertz monitor and you could push it beyond that, then maybe, but at least then you'd be able to like physically display the improvements. But beyond that, like I can't even get close to maximizing the VRAM usage on this thing. Like you would need 8K textures. You need all sorts of crazy stuff to get there. Thank you for that 5. Yeah, it's a multiplayer game. Arcade Asylum will let you know when the Steam page is up. We also do have an initial trailer on YouTube. Early days. That's wonderful. You should send it to me on X. Link it to me. Mention me. Whatever. That'll be cool. And let's wrap up with this real quick. Let's talk about this one from IGN. You ready? I'm not. New segment. Here we go. IGN coming out swinging on AC Shadows, saying Assassin's Creed Shadows is not the Ninja Splinter Cell game I hoped for. Oh, baby. This is interesting because they also did previews of Assassin's Creed Shadows, and I feel like their preview was generally pretty positive in it, but now I'm guessing they have a different person that's making this video saying that it's not what they were hoping for. Let's see, because I've also played Shadows, and maybe I can either agree or disagree. We'll see what they say. Let's see what they have to say.
When I visited Ubisoft Quebec last year to see Assassin's Creed Shadows for the first time, I was encouraged by the development team's enthusiasm for stealth. While I've enjoyed Assassin's Creed's foray into RPG territory, after hundreds of action-heavy hours, I think it's about time the series rediscovered its sneakier genes. Not by way of Mirage's back-to-basics approach, but by reaching forward to provide some much-needed evolution in the series' stealth design. Shadow's promise of a Splinter Cell-style lighting system had me excited, but after playing a 3-hour demo build, I'm not quite convinced that it's delivering a meaningful change for Assassin's Creed.
So the lighting, I agree. I didn't find myself using it very much at all because the idea was like, oh, that lantern that's right above there. You can throw a throwing star at it, break the lantern, and that'll create an area of darkness that you can then use to sneak up. So like you take that out and then, you know, you'd be able to walk over there and they wouldn't see you, stuff like that. I didn't find myself using the lighting system much at all. I feel like you didn't really need to. And as I've mentioned many times, if players don't need to use a tool most players won't use the tool. Like, it's why I recommend so often, if you play The Witcher 3, play The Witcher 3 on Death March, please. It will force you to use oils. It will force you to figure out decoctions. It'll force you to go and upgrade all of your potions and all of your everything. Like, it will force you to play the game with all of the tools because you have no choice. That's what you have to do. But if you don't push players to use those tools, they won't need to. And I feel like what I played, unless you're playing AC Shadows on the expert difficulty, you don't need to use hardly any of these. Like you really just don't. In my opinion, I think that based on what I played, you need to play this on the harder difficulties to feel like that you need to use the lighting stuff. As for other mechanics, the weather systems and specifically the seasons, I do think could have meaningful impact on how players engage with levels, such as in the winter, you know, lakes being frozen, ponds being frozen, all of the leaves on trees and bushes falling off. So now you can be seen inside those. You can't use them for cover anymore. Stuff like that is really, really interesting. But we also didn't get to play that. Our demo was spring going into summer. So we just didn't get to see any of that in action, except for a gameplay demo that the game director did, where they were controlling it. We didn't get to do it, where they controlled it and they went through a level to show us kind of how it works in the winter, but we didn't get to play with winter. We just got to watch people play with winter. But let's hear them out.
Creed. The demo's quest chain, set in Harima Province.
Yeah, to be clear, this is one thing I mentioned a few times that frustrated me. This was our selection for gameplay. Pull up MS Paint here real quick. Boop, 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 boop. Whoops. Move it here. Okay. So this was our section. The portion we actually got to play was like this. Like we got to play this little bubble. It was technically like this. Didn't really get to swim. So we got to play in this little bubble. So when I say like I didn't get to see really any open world exploration, this is what I mean. Like we just didn't get to see it. There just wasn't any of that because we weren't allowed to travel out. You know,
to be cycling through seasons fairly quickly.
Yeah, tight thing for that one. Do you think it'll feel weird cycling through seasons fairly quickly? You only get to cycle through them every 40 minutes. And at that point, you get to press the button to cycle it forward yourself, or it'll cycle forward during like key cutscenes or like big cutscenes or however they define it. So it'll be 40 minutes. And I feel like spring to summer won't really feel like that much of a shift. Summer to fall will feel like a much bigger shift. And then fall to winter will be the biggest shift for sure. And then, you know, winter to spring will feel like a massive one. But on the whole, I mean, I think you're going to feel a significant shift every like probably close to hour and a half, every hour 20. Because I think one season with the season next to it won't feel like that big of a leap. But it's when you go through two seasonal shifts that it'll feel significant. I will say it was shorter than I was expecting it to be, only 40 minutes for that. But I don't know what in-game time or rather what real world like gameplay time a day night cycle is. They said it was 40 minutes for the season to shift forward, but I don't know how much it is for the day to move to night, night to day. Not sure. Should be depending on the story. I think there's going to be some, like for the first 10 hours, I would imagine, I don't know this for a fact, but I would imagine for the first 10 hours, it's much more on rails and they have it set up more clearly when you shift to this season to that season for narrative reasons. But after that, when you're just playing the open world game, I think that they're going to be trying to make it much more dynamic. They want players to have totally different experiences where you went through this castle and it was winter and you had a totally different experience than your buddy who went through it in spring. That's what they want. They want it to be totally different. And then maybe you go over to this castle and it's very similar to, or this fortress or this castle, and it's a very different layout, but now it's fall. And so that's a different encounter for you. It's totally different. Even though architecturally, in terms of guard layout, all of that, it's very similar. it should feel different. That's why they're doing it that way. Whether it works out or not, time will tell. But I think that the seasons will be the big thing in this game, much less the lighting, which I've noticed they haven't talked that much about the lighting recently. When we were at the studio, they talked much more about weather and seasons. They didn't talk a ton about the lighting stuff.
Had me infiltrating a variety of strongholds, from small gardens with just a couple of guards to towering castles packed with opponents. If you've played an Assassin's Creed before, the fundamental approach to all this is practically unchanged. You'll be scaling to high points to identify guard placements, using simple distraction techniques to create opportunities, and stabbing a lot of people in the neck with a hidden blade. All of this can be achieved using the same techniques you've relied upon for years, and many of the flaws that have previously hampered such techniques also make a return. For example, the hidden blade can once again be foiled by high-level opponents, neutering planning and positioning in favor of skill points and upgrades. Incredibly sticky environments.
In the settings, you can make it a one-shot assassination. Just saying. I don't know if that counts as a correction, but if you were frustrated by that in Odyssey or in Valhalla, you can set it to be one-shot assassinations. The reason they choose to do this by default is because they feel like a super high level samurai who has trained for decades, it wouldn't really make sense for you to have all this armor on and then somebody just comes up and boop and you're dead. That's their thought process, is they feel like you should have to earn the win against them a little more than just a one button press. I get that. Especially if they're supposed to be like the boss of that castle, they want you to have to work a little bit more for that. I can respect it. The design choice, that is. I understand why people are bothered by it and don't like it. To me, it's never been that big of a deal, because I also am like, yeah, if you have a bunch of armor around your neck and your body and everything, it makes sense that it wouldn't necessarily one-shot you just by pressing a button because I got close to you. So like I can understand that. Yeah. But can anyone be one-shot? My understanding is when you toggle that thing in the settings of AC Shadows that turns assassinations into one-shots, so you can one-shot even skull class, enemies that are way above your level, they will die if you can perform the assassination on them, whether they are level 100 or whether they are level 5. That's my understanding. That might be mistaken. Maybe they changed it from how I understand it. But that's how it was in Valhalla. You could set it like that. Same with Odyssey. And it's seemingly the same in Shadows. If you don't like that, you can just change it in settings.
Neutering planning and positioning in favor of skill points and upgrades. Incredibly sticky environments continue to be the norm, which ensures you never fall from a rooftop or slip during an ascent. But being glued to surfaces often...
Only with Nawe, Yasuke could not do any of those moves that you just saw Nawe do. He can't run up the wall. He can't free run up the side of the house onto that one. He wouldn't be able to do any of that. So sort of sticky. I think I get what he means. He means like you won't slip off roofs. But I remember watching a developer, I think was it a GDC talk or something? It was years ago. I think it was in response to like the development of AC Syndicate or something. It was a long time ago. But one of the devs was asked, why don't you have like a stamina meter? Why don't you have surfaces that break or slip or something like that? And he said, oh, we've tried implementing that in the game, but in playtests, players hate it because nothing feels worse than trying to quickly get up on top of a roof to get to your assassination target or to get away from somebody that just got alerted to you, and then to have it slip off because you did nothing wrong. It's just the game decided at that point that tile on or that roof tile was slippery or something. Like players hated it when they put it in. So like you don't necessarily have to agree with that, but that's at least the thought process. It's one of those things people might think that they want, but then they get it in the game and it's like, oh yeah, free running and then randomly like falling off the roof just because the game rolled a dice and you rolled wrong. Like I could see how that could get frustrating already when like the game misbehaves. And it's been an age-old problem in AC is that your character will just randomly leap off or do something you don't want it to do because the controls just sometimes aren't that accurate. And imagine if that was part of the gameplay system, as if it's like, yeah, no, this time this roof is just slippery, so you fell off. I can understand how it'd be cool if it's raining and all of a sudden it's slippery and more difficult to get up, but I think it could also be just as infuriating, you know?
Proves catastrophic when it comes to quickly reacting to enemy threats. Emergency escapes feel like you're fighting against a magnetic leash that really wants to lock you in a bad place.
She's outnumbered.
While I left Ubisoft's playtest room somewhat disappointed, it's important to note that Shadows is fulfilling its promise of taking stealth seriously. One of its 2 playable characters is Naue, a ninja wholly dedicated to stealth. Aside from the prologue, in which I had to play as combat-focused Yasuke for tutorial purposes, I was able to play as Naue for the entire duration of the demo. While Shadows often asks if you'd like to switch roles, it had no issue with me choosing Naue every single time.
This was one of the weirder things. I don't remember if we talked about it a lot in the video, but this is one of the weirder things. There will be multiple times where, even in one mission, we did this one mission taking on this castle, and I think there were 3 times where the game paused and asked if I wanted to swap from Naue to Yasuke or Yasuke to Naue. They give you the option of swapping characters mid-mission. And I like the idea, I'm sure, is that, oh, you're about to go take on a mini boss fight. Do you want to do that with Naue or do you want to do that with Yasuke? Ooh, I like fighting bosses with Yasuke. I'll choose him. Oh, now we're past that. You have to stealth your way to the top of the tower. Would you like to do that with Yasuke or with Naue? Ooh, I'll choose Naue. That's kind of the idea, is that you are choosing who to participate in the activity. But what it does narratively is that you get to this point, you both just broke into this castle, then you stop and go, okay, do you want to go kill these guys? You will? Okay. I'll be here. You done? Okay, cool. Run up the stairs. Okay. Big bad boss fights in there. This guy that we've been fighting, that's been killing people, he needs to be brought to justice. Do you want to do it, or would you like me to do it? Oh, you've got it. Okay, I'll just. You good in there? Okay. It's really bizarre. Like, narratively, it feels weird because, like, you'll get to the top of the damn tower, big old boss fight's about to happen, and obviously they should both go in there to make sure everything is okay and to deal with the problem, you know. But instead, because the game just has you choose one of them, you just have to go in there and be like, I choose to play as Naue. And Yasuke's like, I'll stand outside. And he just walks out the door and waits for you to finish the boss fight. And vice versa. If it's like Yasuke's going to go in there, Naue doesn't help. She just sits outside the room and waits for you to finish. Like, it's just weird. It's just weird. I think in practice, I see some people in chat saying this is an example of it being added later. No, I think that this is a perfect example of something that sounded good on paper, but in practice, years later, when you put it in the game, it feels weird. I think the idea was, oh, look, we have 2 protagonists. You pick which one you want to do the boss fight with. You pick which one you want to do the stealth sequence with. And they kind of work together in that way. It sounds good on the whiteboard, but then you see it in action when you're playing through the game years later when it's all been built out. And then you see like, oh, wait, yeah. So it feels like Yasuke is just going to stand outside. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. It feels weird. It feels weird. It would be one thing if it was like, hey, we don't want to make a ruckus. Only one of us is going to go in the castle to take out the big guy up top. It's a little like, I don't know if I buy that. I feel like both would help. If there's an assassination target, a big bad evil guy up there, I would imagine both would help. But even if you said just one of us will do it because we don't want to risk setting off the alarm or something because they have hostages or whatever. Okay, I can suspend disbelief enough for that. You choose Yasuke at the beginning of the mission. You play through the whole mission with Yasuke. You choose Naue, go through the whole mission with Naue. But they stop you multiple times in that one mission asking if you want to swap. And every single time you choose to swap or you choose to settle one player character over the other one is just like, okay, I'll meet you over there when you're done. So love you. Like, it just feels weird, man. It just feels weird.
I don't know whether Lord Kanbei is a genius or a fool. I'll leave.
Could have been cool if we could have AI control the other character. That's kind of what I'm saying, dude. Like, what I would immediately fix, like, this whole thing is if they did. Come on. If they did this. Let me see, where is it? Do you remember in Batman Arkham Knight? Where is it? It was the Riddler fights. Is it this? Is this right? You remember these? Where she fights like with Batman? Where's Batman? Come on. Where's Batman? Is this one not with Batman? Where's the Batman one? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Where they have like the dual abilities where they both come in and help each other fight. And they have like finishers with each other. Is this it? Yeah, this. Do this. You have AI control one of the characters. And you like work together. You can swap between them in the boss fight or in the fight against the big hordes of enemies. And then watch this. He'll do like paired finishers with Catwoman helping. And yeah, dual team takedown. Watch this. Watch this. Press the button. Yeah, see? Catwoman helps. And then you swap to Catwoman and Batman keeps fighting over there by himself. Do that. Big boss fight. Have some grunt enemy comes in, Yasuke is helping with those, and then you swap, and then you're playing as Naoe, and then you swap to Yasuke, and you're helping do finishers. Do that. That's cool. Yeah, or Spider-Man 2 did it. There's all sorts of stuff like that. Plenty of options. Plenty of options.
Wait for me at the Honmaru.
Or co-op. I mean, there's already been leaks that, like, there may be a co-op mode or something planned for Shadows. Like Tom Henderson has talked about it, and whether that ever sees the light of day, who knows? But I think that that was also maybe part of the consideration, is maybe they add that later, like with the co-op stuff they did with Ghost of Tsushima. Maybe they do something like that. You know, I do think that that's maybe a consideration here.
Standing notably shorter than her heavily armoured companion, Naoe is able to avoid enemy sightlines more easily. Her slender frame allows her to do things the bulkier Yasuke cannot, such as slip through narrow gaps and hide in boxes, while her grappling hook opens up access to rooftops and ledges that have no climbing handholds. Playing as Naoe opens up new routes and pathways throughout Shadow's world, or perhaps more accurately, playing as Yasuke closes the door on many established Assassin's Creed traditions. He's unable to perform any of the series' staple stealth actions, aside from using his bow for silent.
Wait. What you just saw is one of the more bizarre things that I couldn't get a clear answer on. Let me replay it. See if you spot it. It's perhaps one of the biggest, most concerning things.
Able to perform any of the series' staple stealth actions, aside from using his bow.
Did you see it? In the mission we played, there was the Animus invisible wall around the castle in a sort of weirdly arbitrary spot that cut through the wall, like right here. So you could only run on the ledge. You couldn't run up this. You couldn't run around it to clear the line of sight. The invisible wall went right through. Specifically, if you played as Yasuke or as Naoe and you climbed up here and you were trying to get around the enemies. And it was so weird because it felt so out of place. Like you're trying to stealth to these targets. And if you want to run on the outskirts of the castle wall, you can't do that. There's an invisible wall. Now, I was wondering, is this just from the demo? Because we had these invisible walls set up as part of the demo, like out here in the forest, when we weren't doing the castle mission, because that's just where they put the walls for the demo, because they wanted us in there for the demo. You know, it's very normal to have restrictions for demos and previews and stuff, but it felt really weird in the mission. And I couldn't get a clear answer as to whether this was just for this mission for the preview or if this was how it was going to be in the mission, which was worrisome because I was like, that's kind of a big deal. Because if our main story missions for stealth stuff are going to have invisible walls for some reason in the castle outskirts, so we can't stealth and climb and parkour where we need to go, that's going to be very restrictive, is it not? It was very strange. But again, I couldn't get a clear answer. And I'm not sure if that's because it's how it is or because they weren't sure if they were allowed to say. I don't know. But it was weird. It was weird. Real quick, I've got to go let the inspector guy in. So give me just a second. I'm going to run upstairs and let him in. So I'll play Concord's Dead and we'll be right back and we'll finish looking at this. Okay, guys? Give me like 2 minutes. 2 minutes, okay? Okay, 2 seconds. 2 minutes. Not seconds. 2 minutes. I'll be right back. Be right back.
Imagine a hero shooter where the hero never showed. Imagine a game with a player base that just refused to grow. A 5v5 hero shooter with gameplay that's just okay. And characters that remind me of Tupperware and white bread. No, I'm not talking about Overwatch. Please stop bringing up Overwatch. This game is not Overwatch. It's actually something else. Imagine a game with a story that no one watches. A game that costs $40 that Sony totally botches. It has all my favorite characters, like Lemmy, Dawn, and Craig. At least, I think that's what their names are. I never bothered to check. Concord like the grave. Your legacy is safe as a game that no one played, and a price that no one paid. Boop-a-doop-ba, beep-a-boop-da, scoop-a-boop-ba, beep-beep-beep-beep-beep, phlegm. Concord was about as good as accidentally peeing on your own leg. Concord, we're here to lay you to rest. We know you tried your best. You copied so much cool stuff just to turn out lame in the end. I'll never forget my favorite moments, like when Hot Sauce Guy jumped. Remember when he jumped? That was really cool. A rat just ran by on my desk, and even the rat didn't want to play Concord, even though I blessed him with the chance. The $40 he could afford, but the rat just stared on in a trance. Rat, 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 rat. Concord's dead.
Rat, 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 rat. Concord's dead.
The Costco guys
Man,
made more money
it's
than
so
you.
good.
They were just on Jimmy Fallon too. Imagine Lennox being on Jimmy Fallon
Because I literally can't.
The rat on my desk is eating all my Cheerios and grapes.
And also Concord is dead. So good. Okay, anyway, continuing on. Like I said, this invisible wall thing has me really weirded out because I'm starting to fear that these types of decisions could significantly impact the player agency and freedom within these missions. Because part of what's fun about black box missions is figuring out new alternative routes and cool stuff that you didn't see before. And if they're choosing to go the route of putting these walls up, I'm not sure I agree with that decision. Because what it very quickly turns into is like, oh yeah, the mission is here. The target's up here. You can barely see it. It's like, oh, the target is up here in this tower. So you would want to run, like you start the mission here and you'd maybe want to run up here, climb on the outskirts of the towers, and then climb up the tower to the target. Too bad. There's an invisible wall and you have to play the mission in this little bubble because that's what we selected and that's how we have it set up. And that would be lame. I understand sometimes you work really hard on designing a level and designing gameplay encounters and stuff, and so you really want players to go through it in a particular way. But putting up invisible walls just kind of sucks. Just kind of sucks. Don't worry, I'll finish out the whole song at the end. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Bow for silent ranged attacks. Those stealth staples become more interesting, at least on paper, thanks to refreshed ideas. Shadow's title partly refers to its new approach to detection. Staying in the dark renders you invisible to enemies, and the closer you move towards a light source, the more visible you become. This is clearly spelled out by a meter on your HUD that fills and empties as you move around. The clever bit though is that you can manipulate the environment to create advantages. Lanterns can be destroyed with blades or thrown shurikens, plunging rooms into darkness so that you may draw blood completely unseen. It's an idea that was prevalent in the era of Thief and Splinter Cell, but has fallen by the wayside since stealth largely became an optional approach in action games rather than its own dedicated genre. The adoption of this approach sounds like a complete game changer, but in reality it had minimal impact on a playstyle I've honed across 13 prior games. I don't doubt that, under the hood, the engine's enemy AI routines are influenced by this new simulation, but when it comes to actually playing Shadows, I found the presence of light rarely impacted my progress or forced me to devise smarter methods of approach.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is why game difficulty matters. Game balancing matters. Because if you don't push players into using a mechanic, they won't use it. There's some people who are curious enough to be like, oh, I'll experiment with it anyways. There's a lot of players, though, who just won't. As I said in that 3.5 hour critique revisit thing of The Witcher 3 I just did, I know somebody who played through the entirety of The Witcher 3 and didn't realize that you could upgrade your potions. Like, had no idea. What do you mean superior swallow? It's swallow. What do you mean superior? Yours is better than mine. And it's like, no, because they never felt the need to do it. They never reached that wall on the normal difficulty where they were like, allegedly, they said normal difficulty. Maybe they were doing just the story, but because of the difficulty they were playing on, I guess is the point. They never felt the need to go out and get upgrades for potions and brew those. Superior throat, how dare you? But this is why I think it's so crucial for games. If you have a cool mechanic like this, I appreciate the difficulty slider, or at least what like the intention is, which is to make the game more accessible to more people. That's cool. But I feel like maybe make the default difficulty more difficult. Because if your default difficulty is leading to situations where players aren't engaging with your titular game mechanic, the shadows of your game. It's Assassin's Creed Shadows. And on the normal difficulty setting, players don't feel the need to use the shadows. I think something's gone wrong. So I would encourage the team, if any of them see this, really ponder that. Like, I think that's an important bit, because if your game is about shadows and on the regular difficulty, people don't need to use shadows to progress, it begs the question, why are there shadows? So maybe make the current difficulty very easy, rename or easy, make the expert difficulty that you already have set up, make that normal, and then maybe mention that there's going to be like a veteran difficulty that's even harder than that. But I feel like if you leave it as is, players won't need to engage with all this stuff. And in the pursuit of making the game as accessible as possible, you actually end up leading to players missing very important mechanics that are really cool, but that they don't need to bother with because the game is too easy.
I could stand on rooftops with a full visibility meter and no one would see me. Traditional sightlines seemed to be the only factor I truly had to consider. This sense of same but different persists across many of Shadow's ideas. Naue is able to lie prone and crawl on her stomach, which certainly did make a difference when it came to invisible repositioning. But the environment I encountered in the demo made little creative use of this ability. For example, I was disappointed to discover that a tunnel beneath a house didn't have a hatchway into the room above. Instead of acting like an alternate entry point, all this crawl space offered was the same pathway that could be faster accomplished by simply scaling across the rooftop. A more positive shift can be found in the positioning of enemies, with encounters offering an increased challenge over Mirage's overly simple arrangements. I was caught out more than a couple of times by overlapping vision cones and patrols, and the resulting high alert state does seem to make guards more persistent in their hunt for you than in previous games. Simply hiding on a roof and tracking foes using eagle vision did seem enough to easily avoid them though, at least on the default difficulty. Because of the better guard placements, there is an increased and welcome emphasis on assessment and planning. Gone is the drone-like bird of the last few games, replaced with an over-the-shoulder zoom, meaning scouting and marking enemies can only be done from your own sightline. It's a good change, one that forces you to explore an area on foot and spend more time considering your angles of approach. But when it comes to executing a plan, things return to the very familiar. Naue's toolbelt holds kunai throwing knives for insta-kill headshots and smoke bombs for concealing attacks and escapes, both of which are necessary but vanilla stealth tools. The same can be said for repositioning guards, which is done either by luring them to your position with a whistle or baiting them to a specific spot with a thrown bell. There's the obvious combos, such as encouraging a guard towards an explosive barrel that you then detonate with a throwing knife, but beyond that, at least in this demo, there didn't seem to be the canvas for anything more experimental or exciting. Shadow seems reliant on a lean and familiar set of abilities, at least as far as stealth goes. Even options that initially seem to be fresh are
So this is another component that I feel like is totally lost based on which difficulty setting you choose. Did you see what Naue was doing just a second ago? Let me rewind. Rewinding. Laying prone on the rooftop. What is the benefit of that? The benefit is that when you lay prone on the roof, enemies on the ground can't see you. Cool idea that you need to either be further up on the roof, on the other side of the roof, or lay prone. On the normal difficulty, guards' vision cones don't extend like above their head unless you do something to specifically alert them to look up. When you play on the expert difficulty for stealth, because Shadows has a combat difficulty slider selection thing, and then it also has a stealth difficulty selector. When you play on the normal difficulty on stealth, guards don't look up like that. When you play on the expert difficulty, they do. So there's another like layer to these mechanics and what you could or couldn't do, what guards can and can't do based on which difficulty you select. And if you choose the more difficult one, then you will have a totally different gameplay experience because guards will gain new abilities they wouldn't have had otherwise. And it's, in my opinion, it's another example of gameplay mechanics not being exposed to players because players never need to deal with it or consider it because the game is being balanced too easy. And I feel like that's something they can fix as they move forward with Shadows as they get closer to launch. But I am worried about the balancing of things right now because it seems like they're leaning more into accessibility and ease compared to engaging and forcing players to use every mechanic.
As far as stealth goes, even options that initially seem to be fresh are repackaged tools from the past. You can call on an allied brawler to charge at a designated target, which works as both a distraction and a method of remotely eliminating enemies, but this is really just a thematically different take on the berserk darts that have appeared in a number of prior Assassin's Creed games. Naue does have a detailed skill tree, allowing you to build and hone her abilities beyond those standard tools. But all the exciting options are combat focused, such as the elaborate 9-strike guard breaker or eviscerate with its kickflip finisher. When it comes to stealth, the most exotic option I could find was the ability to slow down time for a few seconds. As far as this demo was willing to show me, there's nothing along the lines of traps, disguises, or other more advanced stealth ideas.
I don't remember if I'm allowed to say this, so I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to say sorry for saying it. One of the devs did sort of suggest that there might be narrative moments in like the main story that will utilize disguises and like social stealth mechanics like that. I don't think it'll be an active thing though. I don't think it's like, oh, walk up to this guard and put on their armor and now you're disguised like them. But I do think there will be some missions that utilize that in the game. That's at least kind of what they hinted at. It's kind of what they're like, oh, because I think we were sitting at a table and like one of the other YouTubers or TikTokers or something asked a question, are there disguises in the game? And they did one of those things where like, well, we can't tell you anything, but there might be something cool for you later in the game as part of the main story. So it's like, so there is, is that what you mean? You can just say yes, but it was one of those things where it was like, okay, so yes, that's what you're saying. But yeah, it's not like a main, this isn't Hitman. Okay. This isn't Hitman.
Perhaps the changing of the seasons, which I didn't get to experience and is promised to change the landscape considerably, is where Shadow's more interesting stealth challenges lie. Instead, the toughest challenges I faced were direct clashes. Shadows effectively has two combat systems. Yasuke's feels like a direct continuation of Valhalla, but tuned up to feel significantly swifter and a little more tactical. I liked it a lot, at least as far as I could tell in the limited time I played as him. Naoe, meanwhile, is nowhere near as strong as her samurai counterpart, and so takes considerably more damage and cannot block as effectively. This forces her fight style to prioritize dodging and staying nimble. I really like the concept that drives this, that each character provides a distinctly different version of the same experience. But on the battlefield, I found myself frustrated. Playing as Naoe, it feels like the rhythm of combat runs at a different tempo to the attack animations, and so I constantly tripped up over awkwardly timed dodge and parry windows. In most instances, the brutal punishment inflicted by combat forced me to take stealth seriously. It's classic carrot versus stick stuff, and an effective stick at that. What I'm less enthusiastic about is my pure stealth playthrough being derailed by mandatory bosses with huge health bars. I wish, when playing as Naoe, these bosses were reconfigured as stealth-focused assassination challenges in the mold of Assassin's Creed Unity's centerpiece missions.
Agree a bajillion, cajillion, babillion%. It feels like the world, to borrow a phrasing from Joel Raptor, it feels like a world built for Naoe, but combat built for Yasuke. And the game forces you to do both with both characters. Like, it forces you, if you want to play with Naoe, sure, yeah, you can. But you're going to do these boss fights with her, even though she is not really equipped for it. And if you do it with Yasuke, you'll have a much easier time. But if you're a player who just wants to do this with Naoe, just play with Naoe, you can, but it's going to be more difficult. I wonder why. I mean, it's pretty clear. The reason is because they want you to swap between them. They want you to have a reason to swap between them. They don't want this to just be Naoe's game that Yasuke is also in. They want you to feel the need to swap to Yasuke every once in a while to play with this person or that person, even though it can be frustrating. Because like this, you don't know you're about to go into a boss fight necessarily in this particular mission they're showing. You don't know you're about to fight a boss, if I recall correctly. And so if you chose to go through it with Naoe, you just end up in a boss fight and you're not really prepped for it. But it was set there, so if you're playing as Yasuke, you go, oh, nice. I'm going to have an easier time with this. I'm glad I'm not playing as Naoe, you know.
Instead, I'm forced to defeat my foe in a one-on-one duel that's clearly designed to fulfill the samurai fantasy side of Shadow's offering. I appreciate that Shadows always gives you the option to switch to Yasuke, and prior to one of these fights even prompted me to, but to choose a stealth character and then be forced to engage in direct combat does feel like being told your decision is invalid.
Especially because in this moment, there's a bad guy who, I mean, like, pretty clearly you're going to kill. And instead of like stealthily killing him or climbing in through a window or something, like you have to go up through the castle, as I described earlier with Naoe and Yasuke working kind of together, or just having Yasuke sit in the corner while you do everything. And then you will have a direct confrontation. Like you will have a one-on-one fight. And it's just, it doesn't feel appropriate because it feels like, okay, Yasuke, you distract him. I'll sneak behind him and assassinate him. Because, you know, I'm an assassin. It was one of the cool things about Ghost of Tsushima was this duality, this dichotomy between the fighting with honor from the samurai side of Jin's I don't know, background maybe, and choosing to do whatever it takes to win with the shinobi side of gameplay and stealthing and all that, which is considered very shameful and dishonorable and all this. And I feel like that's just not really a thing. Like, Naoe should be totally fine with sneaking up and stabbing him in the back of the skull when Yasuke goes and distracts him. Why wouldn't you do that? Use the shadows, use the Assassin's Creed shadows to sneak behind the guy and assassinate him. But instead, no, it's like, we're going to have a boss fight and you're going to like it. So just, again, you have to suspend disbelief a lot.
Maybe, with several more hours of practice and a combat tune-up prior to release, dueling with Naoe will feel less like a punishment. After 3 hours of play, I'm fairly confident in saying that Assassin's Creed Shadows will be the best stealth experience of the series' RPG era. Having a character and toolkit entirely dedicated to the approach signifies that Ubisoft is taking this fundamental part of the franchise seriously for what feels like the first time in many years.
And I think that's true. It's just, they got a lot of polishing to do, and it's... We'll see, because there's a few key pillars I'm not really convinced of right now. I'll be real. But, okay, guys, I've got to go deal with the inspector. They're done. I just got he rung the doorbell again, so I've got to go talk to him. So I'm going to call it there. I love you all desperately. I'll see you soon, okay? Okay, I'm sorry for the abrupt shut off of the stream, but I've got to go supervise the whatever, because the construction guy's here. But I love you all. I'll see you soon, okay? Bye me. Love you. Bye.